What's the cost of us both teleporting? Ning asked the system. Without the distance in consideration, it will cost you 1,560,000 energy. Okay. We must not have a lot of body mass even when combined together, huh, he thought. He grabbed onto Hiesi's shoulder and ordered the system, teleport to my farm on the other island. Confirmed. The two of them were suddenly at the farm with no sort of whiplash from the teleport. Hiesi immediately looked around as he got scared from the sudden change in his surrounding. Where are we, Enaka? He asked. It's the next island over that you told me about, Ning answered. On the next island? Hiesi was shocked. He started looking around to make sure it was in fact the right place. The trees do look similar to what I remembered, but it has been so long that I can't tell if we really are on the next island, Hiesi said. Ning ignored the little boy and started to look for some fruits upon the tree. He used telekinesis to pull on down from high up in the tree and washed it with the filtrated water before eating it. He went on to picking up a few more fruits, eating some, and storing some. After drinking some water, it was time to farm. Hiesi, come over here, he said, calling Hiesi towards the place he had left his hoe and shovel. He took the hoe and gave the shovel to Hiesi. Hiesi looked at the shovel like it was the first time he was seeing it. **T. It just might be, Ning thought. Do you know what this is? He asked. Hiesi looked at it for a bit longer and said, a shovel? Oh, so you do know what it is. Then why were you staring at it as if you've never seen it before? Ning asked. Lord Enaka, I have seen shovels before, yes. But, I have never seen one with this type of rock, Hiesi said. Rock? No, it's not a rock, it's a metal, Ning replied. Oh God, I forgot these primitive people don't know what metal is. That will be a bit more troublesome to explain. Hopefully, I won't have to. Ning had to. Hiesi kept asking questions, so he proceeded to explain exactly what metal was with what he could remember from his studies back on Earth. He didn't bother buying knowledge on metals as he felt them be a waste of time. Alright, since you know what a shovel is, I expect you to know how to use one as well. Go and dig a hole just like this one, he said, pointing to the hole he had dug for the filtrated water in the field. Yes, Enaka, Hiesi said, and went to the points Ning had assigned him to dig a hole in. In the meantime, Ning decided to make the field even more farm-like by clearing out the weeds and digging a proper pathway that was left behind by his telekinesis digging. About 15 minutes into clearing the pathways, he was interrupted by Hiesi. He turned around to ask, what is it? I finished with digging the hole, Hiesi said. That was quite fast. Well then proceed to the rest too, Ning said, and turned around to continue his task when Hiesi spoke again. I finished all 3, Enaka. This put a pause on Ning's works. What did you say? He turned around to look at the 3 different piles of dirt that had been dug out from the ground, each one higher than the one he had dug up. Holy **T. Just how strong is this kid? He didn't even take 5 minutes to make a hole, he thought. I need to check. Ning looked for a relatively clear area and said, dig one over there too. Hiesi went back to grab the shovel and proceeded to walk over to the place where Ning had pointed to. Without hesitation, he struck the ground with the shovel, almost like a knife cutting through a cake. Almost like a robot, he started to throw the dirt behind him and dig. Dig, throw dirt behind, dig, throw dirt behind. He did this for a little over 4 minutes and the hole was ready. This hole was bigger than the one he made as well. This body cultivation thing is no joke. I thought it was lesser than normal chi cultivation since they could use any techniques. However, if you can do this with just your body, what need is there for flashy techniques? He thought. Although, the best would be a combination of both. Flying around at a very fast speed and punching really hard, just like Su ***** man. I should learn it too, he thought. He was about to ask for the technique, but soon realized how awkward it would be if he had to ask a technique that made him stronger using himself according to the villagers. I need to change my approach, he thought. Come over here, he called Hiesi. Tell me about your sun god's morning cleansing technique. Who taught it to you? He asked. Hiesi got confused for a second and asked, what is this sun god's, a technique? He asked. Ning was surprised. You don't know the name of the technique you practice every morning? He asked. Oh, so our morning training has a name. I didn't know, Enaka. I had always just followed what the elderly did, he said. So you weren't properly taught? He asked. No, Enaka. That's a problem. Do I have to go find the chief now? He wondered. Wait. Who knows about this the most? He asked. Haisi thought for a second and replied, maybe the elderly, since they have been practicing this dance for the longest. Although, I am pretty sure they learned it the same way from their ancestors as well. This is getting way too convoluted. It doesn't look like anyone in the village can teach it in a perfect method. Sigh, I might just have to buy the perfect version from the shop. What food should I grow? Ning started thinking. He had only thought about the other aspects for now and had only chalked it up to growing fruits at the end. But only growing fruits wasn't a very good idea. A human body needed 6 forms of nutrients, and fruits only gave 2 of them, vitamins and minerals. He could get fruits from the forest. He could get fat and proteins from the meats and fishes, and water was available everywhere for now. So the thing he needed was carbohydrates. He thought through agricultural knowledge and decided to grow potatoes. They were the most versatile food to cook, and to these people with no pots and pans, they were the best. System, create a kg of potatoes I can grow here, he said. 1 kg of potatoes cost 2 million energy, are you sure? It's not a lot. Buy it, he ordered. Out of nowhere, dozens of small potatoes appeared in front of him. He immediately used telekinesis to slowly put them on the ground. Now I just chop them up and bury them, right? He thought. That was what he learned from his studies back on Earth, so he was a little worried if that was correct. Let's not rush it. System, show me information on how to grow potatoes, he asked. The system showed 5 different levels of knowledge and he decided to buy the intermediate version for 3 million energy just to make sure. Oh, eyes huh? Guess I will have to let them be for a few more days then, he thought. He learned that the potatoes could be planted wholly to grow a new potato plant, but you could also wait for a few days to see small buddings around the potato known as eyes to just use that part to grow the potatoes. That way, he could make multiple plants out of a single potato. I was correct about cutting them up. However, I just didn't know where exactly to cut them. He wanted to do a couple of trips to the ocean to fill up the new grounds made by Haisi, but he was low on energy and decided against it. Guess I have nothing to do here, he thought as he looked around. He kept the potatoes inside his storage and looked around for Haisi. He found Haisi outside the valley, gathering some lengthy sticks and leaves. What are you doing? He asked, looking at the unusual scene. Oh, enaka. I am gathering these sticks to make more weapons in the village, and these leaves for guarding your home. It is currently just using the scraps from the island to do so. That's not a bad idea, Ning said. All right, let's leave now. He grabbed onto Haisi and teleported away. He didn't want to waste extra energy, so he teleported to the edge of the island. You go take these back, I will come back with water, Ning said. Water? What for, enaka? He asked. You'll see. Ning left the curious Haisi in the dark and walked towards the ocean. He felt a little worried that the demon would jump right out, but thankfully, it didn't. He just grabbed as much water as it would fit in his body and ran back, catching up to Haisi within a minute. Haisi, who was just walking slowly, saw Ning coming towards him and asked, Where's the water, enaka? It's with me, don't worry, Ning said and walked forward, making Haisi speed up as well. They reached the village center in a few minutes and Ning made Haisi call everyone out. At that point, Ning fell into thought. I can't keep doing this forever, right? At some point, I will have to leave the village to explore the rest of the world. If I just feed them for now, they will only be fed for now. However, if I teach them how to feed themselves, they can feed themselves forever. I guess it is time for me to teach these people. He looked at the gathered villagers and asked, Does anyone have anything important to do right now? He asked. Everyone shook their heads. No? Then from today on, every day, I will teach you 3 things. Number 1, I will teach you how to read and write. Number 2, I will teach you how to get your own food and water. And finally, number 3, I will teach you guys how to cultivate. The villagers were shocked and confused. None of them knew what reading and writing were, or what cultivation was. But hearing that their god would teach them how to get their own food and water, they were a little shocked. Did their god not know that they were already capable of that? The chief walked in front and spoke, Lord enaka, I understand your wish to spread knowledge, but we are perfectly capable of finding our own fish to eat and finding our own coconut to drink water. There is also little water in the hole you made us dug. I don't see why we would need to learn that. Ning simply shook his head and said, That is what you think. He asked the system to make a small metallic bucket that cost him a little over 10 million energy. The bucket could hold about 10 liters of water. The villagers were shocked that he could create something out of nothing but didn't really think a lot about it as it was just a miracle done by their gods. Ning put the bucket on the ground in front of him and put his hands on top of it. Suddenly, water sprouted from his hands, falling onto the bucket, filling it up very quickly. Ning called the chief over as he said, "Drink this." The chief obeyed his god's orders and walked up front, sweeping water from the bucket and drinking it. Immediately, his eyes turned wide as he started coughing loudly. "Enaka, this is seawater." The chief was confused as to why his god would make him drink the water from the sea that was full of salt. The villagers were equally confused as to what exactly was going on. Ning, on the other hand, did not answer. He instead just closed his eyes and put his right hand into the water. A small hum started appearing from the bucket as it started vibrating very fast. After a few seconds, Ning opened his eyes and said once again, "All right, drink it now." The chief hesitated a little and scooped some of the water, drinking it once more. Only this time, he didn't freak out. "This is just normal water now," the chief said with a bit of surprise on his face. "Yes, and I will teach you, people, how to do that. Same with the food. You won't have to only eat fish. I will teach you how to grow a lot of different foods." Starting then, Ning began teaching the villagers how to read and write. He couldn't make them filter water right now, or teach them cultivation methods since he didn't have much energy at the moment. He taught them reading and writing in the alphabet of their own language. The intermediate Clavian language he had bought not only gave him translations ability, he could also read it and write it. Only, for some reason, the Clavians had forgotten them by now. Many centuries must have passed away, Ning thought. I wouldn't be surprised if they were learning the wrong sun god's morning cleansing technique either. Ning thought he needed to buy it as soon as possible. But when he asked the system for the price, it had told him that the original technique would cost him 860 million in energy. So, he had a lot of time to spend again. After teaching the people, he went back to Hiesi's house and kept the potatoes in a cool and dark place to have them grow eyes. The next month passed in a similar fashion. Every morning, Ning would wake up from his cultivation and walk back to the village from his own house. He would then use yin to sound conversion to gather as much energy as he could. After that, he would eat and drink something to satiate his hunger and start teaching the people of the village. After a few hours, he would go back to his house to cultivate. During these times, he had already taken the potatoes and started growing them. They were already showing small plants on top of where they were buried. He would go to the other island from time to check on these potatoes and bring back some fruits and meats. Otherwise, he would just spend his days cultivating. Although he had started to gather a lot of chi by now, he still hadn't felt what they called a breakthrough. Almost as if, even after a month of cultivation, he wasn't at that point yet. On the days he knew there was food, he wouldn't miss it in the evening. Otherwise, he would just keep on cultivating. His cultivation would usually last through the entire night. Before daybreak, he would once more go back to the village to start over his day again. It was currently the morning and the sun had just risen up. However, it was a slightly different day from the other ones, and that was because he had gathered a bit over 900 million energy, and he could finally buy the original Sun God's morning cleansing technique. System. Buy the Sun God's morning cleansing technique, he ordered. Sun God's morning cleansing technique costs 860 million energy, are you sure? Yes. Congratulations, you have bought Sun God's morning cleansing technique. He had just bought a skill, so there was no sudden information that appeared aside from what he had to do for the technique to work itself. The Sun God's morning cleansing technique was a set of movements he would have to do just before the sun was seen on the horizon and end when the sun was fully out of the horizon. This day, he decided to not cultivate and instead just practice the technique. His mind knew what he had to do, but his body didn't. So he thought it would be a good idea to teach it what had to be done. He taught the villagers for a few hours less today. In a month, most of them were already able to read, but the writing was still a little hard for them. After finishing today's class, he went to a quiet spot on the island and started practicing. At first, he was kind of stiff, not really knowing what had to be done, but over the course of the day, he learned a lot. He wasn't perfect at it, but he wasn't very bad at it either. It was actually better than most of the villagers here since they were doing an improper version of the technique. Over the course of the hundreds of years, the Clavians had lost the exact method of movement for the technique and were using what they could remember instead. I should teach them the proper one tomorrow, he thought. After practicing for a couple of more hours, he went to the village to enjoy the meat he had caught a few days ago. After eating that, he went back to his home to cultivate. I shouldn't have immediately moved around so much for so long. I'm getting tired now, he said mid-yawn. He sat down in a cross-legged lotus position, to cultivate, but his body just wasn't obeying his command. He had been awake for over a month now. That was impossible for a normal human being. However, perhaps because of the fact that there was no intense physical activity like today, he survived thanks to what little cultivation he was doing. However, now it had crossed his limits, and before he even knew it, his body drooped down to the warm floor and he fell asleep. Just at the crack of dawn, Ning opened his eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, he had woken up on his own. Hearing no system sounds made him confused for a second as to what was happening, but then he realized that he was actually sleeping just now and not unconscious. Whoa! Was I sleeping? Nice, he thought. Only then did he bother to look around and saw some light from the cracks at the door. He got scared. Am I late? He thought. He immediately ran out only to find out that the sun wasn't up yet and he was only looking at the lit-up sky. Oh, thank God, he thought. He looked at the sky and realized the sun would be up any minute now, so he didn't have time to go to the village center to train. Thus, he decided to do it here right now. *T. I haven't even figured out whether I have a yin body or a yang body or neither. Hopefully, it's the last one, he thought. He had woken up in the morning, waiting for the sun to come up enough times now that he knew what time was the best to start the routine at. Following the sun god's morning cleansing routine, he started moving his hands and legs. He twisted his torso and neck as required to make the shapes that were in his mind. Slowly, motes of light appeared from the area around him and slowly gathered towards him, almost as if. I'm cultivating? He was surprised. But that wasn't it. Sun god's morning cleansing technique was a body cultivation technique, not a chi cultivation one, so there should be no chi cultivation happening. But then why is the chi gathering towards me? He wondered. A few more seconds passed by and the chi that was appearing around him, attached to him, creating a light shine in his body that could only be seen during the dark. Oh, so this is why they glow in the morning. They have chi attaching to themselves, Ning thought. He fully expected more chi to attach to himself and his body to glow brighter as time went on. However, none of that happened. Instead of glowing brighter, his body was actually starting to stop glowing even before the sun was up. What is going on? He wondered, and that was when he felt it, almost as if he had just drunk a glass of cold water during a hot summer day. He felt the chi that had disappeared start washing over the inside of his body, slowly clearing something within him. He felt his body get a little bit colder when the chi was done washing over him. Was that yang energy? He thought. If what he thought was happening was really happening, then the current sun god's morning cleansing technique that the Clavians were learning was truly a mediocre version of the original. Once his body was done being washed with the chi, the sun came out of the horizon. Intense yang energy immediately entered his body and started burning everything. Yet, the most they were to Ning was a bit of discomfort. He didn't stop doing the different movements and kept it up until the sun was fully up. Once it was time to stop, he finished the movements and felt his body. He looked around for a tree and located a palm tree right next to him. Without wasting a moment, he suddenly punched the tree. Bam! A loud sound ran across the island from a single attack of his. Ow, he said as he shook his hands a little from the pain. Idiot. You've only cultivated for a day, why would you suddenly hit the tree for no reason? He scolded himself. He did notice a small indentation on the surface of the tree where he had just hit, but he wasn't sure if it was from chi cultivation or the one just now, so he ignored it and walked back to the village. Ah, I forgot to gather energy today, he thought. Well, whatever, I will do it sometimes later. He reached the village and saw the villagers going back to doing nothing. Haisi saw him arrive and immediately ran up to him to ask, "Where were you, Inikaka?" "Oh, I was cultivating this human body of mine to become stronger for now," Ning told the truth. He looked around the village and wondered if what he thought about the original technique was really true. "System, give me knowledge on the sun god's morning cleansing technique," he asked. The system showed 5 different levels of knowledge, all ranging from 50,000 energy to 500 million energy. He bought the intermediate version for 5 million energy. Information suddenly arrived in his mind. He read through the new knowledge in his mind and thought, so I was right, but also wrong. If he were to give the new, or old considering how one viewed it, sun god's morning cleansing technique to the villagers, then their improvements in body cultivation would immediately triple. This was good, but not as good as what he had been doing with Haisi. He had managed to improve the kid's body cultivation by about 50 times, and that was all because he had managed to remove yin qi from his body. But he shouldn't have required me to do that if he had the original technique after all, he thought. The original technique could gather the surrounding qi onto the cultivator's body and have it enter their body to get rid of both yang and yin qi for the moment before the pure yang on the sun would enter their body. However, the qi on the villagers never entered their body and stuck to the outside, glowing their body in the process. The one and the only reason why they couldn't let the qi enter their body was that they have yet to cultivate with qi, Ning thought. I see. It is time for the villagers to start training in qi cultivation as well. All right. Gather around, he said as he stood in front of the villagers who were here to learn how to read and write. Today, we are going to switch topics. I have been teaching you how to read and write for over a month now. This time, I am going to teach you how to cultivate with qi, he said. The villagers were a little confused as to what qi cultivation was, but they remembered their god teaching it to them before, so they sat quietly listening to him. Cultivation is divided into two types, body cultivation and qi cultivation. The one you guys train in is body cultivation. He went on to teach the villagers about cultivation for over an hour. He didn't have any cultivation technique to teach them, so he promised he would get them one soon. He needed energy before that. After he finished teaching the villagers for the day, he ate some fruits and teleported to the other island to look after the farm. He returned back with some more fruits and some bird corpses for the day. He ate what they cooked and walked back to his home to cultivate. A little over half a month had gone by and Ning had now improved the situation of the villagers by a lot. He had bought 3 types of cultivation technique knowledge in the form of a textbook that he could give to the villagers. One was for people with abundant yin qi, one for people with abundant yang qi, and the other for people with none. Altogether it had cost him about a few hundred million of energy. He gathered energy for another dozen or so more days, and had also used a few hundred million energy on himself to bring his interdimensional storage's capacity up to 75 kilograms. Finally, I have enough storage to fit my body, he thought. His body had also grown a lot stronger compared to the first few days. He could now run to and fro between his home and the village without breaking a sweat. He could punch a tree and not feel pain, only a bit of numbness. He wasn't sure if it was just body cultivation or qi cultivation that was doing this to him, but he was happy that he was getting stronger and didn't complain. I can feel it, anytime soon now, he thought. He could feel a sort of bottleneck that he had reached while cultivating and he could tell that he would soon break through. So, he started cultivating. The first few hours were barely anything. His body was teeming with qi, so he couldn't gather anymore. Thus, he could only sit there and use his cultivation method. After a few hours, however, he felt his body start to grow erratic. The qi inside him was suddenly moving in a coordinated fashion and pushing along his meridians. As they moved along his body, minute particles of black goo-like substances started oozing out of his body. Once his body was covering in this black substance, he felt his body go boom. It was incredibly tiny, but he heard it. Suddenly, the qi that was rushing around his body stopped moving and remained dormant once more even though he was clearly cultivating. I broke through? He was a little surprised at first, but once he felt the clear increase in strength he started laughing. Ha ha ha, I broke through, he screamed. He looked at his hands to check how strong he was, but then he noticed the black goo on them. What is this? He wondered at first, but then he moved it around a little and realized it was filth that his body had thrown out, exactly as the cultivation knowledge had said he would. Wait, he said as he remembered what was said in that vast block of information once more and was surprised at what he had missed. So, I'm only at the first layer of qi condensation realm, huh? This is the official beginning of my journey as a cultivator, he thought. He got a little emotional, but then he smelled himself and lost any emotion whatsoever. Ew. Better go wash this. He practically ran to the beach and used telekinesis from a little further away to haul in water to wash. As he was doing so, he noticed Hai-Si and a couple of villagers in the ocean a bit far away washing as well. I have never seen them take a bath, he thought and walked over there to ask what was happening. Hai-Si, what is going on? He asked. Oh, enaka. I don't know what is going, but for the last couple of days the villagers have been getting covered in filth, so we came here to wash it away, Hai-Si replied. Sorry, you guys have been covered in filth for how long now? Ning asked. It all started with me about 10 days or so ago. I woke up at night, covered in filth, and had to go wash away. After that, it was my mother, the chief, Granny Hassini and a few others who woke up every night covered in filth. Tonight, it's 3 people at once, so we brought them here to wash them, Hai-Si said. Ning was shocked. He didn't like where this conversation was going, but even then he asked the question he feared the most. How long do you cultivate each night, Haisi? He asked. Haisi thought for a few seconds and replied, about 2 hours a night, I guess. Sometimes more if I get lost in a trance, but mostly just 2 hours. I have to sleep so I can't keep doing it overnight, he said. Any idea about the villagers? Ning asked. Should be the same, said Haisi. **T. Ning cursed. Here I am, cultivating day and night for forever, barely breaking through. Yet, he can only cultivate 2 hours a day for 20 days and already break through? Where is the fairness in that? He then thought of something and started despairing a little. Oh God. Am I really that bad at cultivation that it would take me nearly 15 times as long as this kid? Is my body really that bad, system? He asked. Yes. Aside from the ones whose cultivation base has been crippled, you have one of the worst bodies on the whole planet. Ning felt like crying when he heard this. Why is that so? He asked. Your body was born and raised on Earth, a place with no special energy. So you were not adapted to the chi in the environment. A few more years on planet Kumia should help you improve your body's potential by a lot. Ning calmed down a little after hearing what the system had to say about his body. So the lack of potential is just temporary, huh? Hopefully, it grows enough to be at least the tiniest bit helpful, he hoped. It was still nighttime, but he had no problem seeing anymore. The moon was out bright, and thanks to being a cultivator, he could see quite well even when seeing through the human eyes. He looked at the different people currently bathing and wondered, has someone in here broken through twice? He didn't know what the cultivators' levels were, so he couldn't tell how many had even broken through once. In fact, he couldn't even tell if one really was a cultivator before breaking through. I can't let it go on like this, he thought. System, is there a way for me to tell apart their cultivation? He asked. Host can buy chi cultivation analysis from the shop. Chi cultivation analysis cost 4 million energy. That is very cheap. What's going on, system? Is this a bad skill or does this have some sort of restriction? What does it do? He asked. Chi cultivation analysis lets you analyze the cultivation of anything that can cultivate. The cost of analysis is a very high amount of mental strength. Higher the difference in cultivation, the more mental strength is expended. Chi cultivation analysis can be done in 3 layers. The first layer only analyzes cultivation base. The second layer analyzes the name of cultivator and cultivation base. The third layer analyzes the name, cultivation base, and all techniques of the cultivator. Each additional layer doubles the mental strength cost. So in other words, it's extremely taxing on the mind, which is why it costs so little, huh? Ning asked. Yes, sigh. Ning debated for a while as to whether or not he should buy it, but seeing that it cost so little, his heart was easily swayed. I will just stop using it if my head hurts, he thought. All right, buy it, Ning said. Congratulations, you have received chi cultivation analysis. You say chi cultivation analysis, so I assume there are other forms of analysis as well? Ning asked. There are many other types of analysis such as body cultivation analysis, equipment analysis, artifact analysis, pill analysis, dungeon analysis, hunter analysis, adventurer analysis, mage analysis, zombie analysis, beast analysis, etc. Only a few of these would be useful to host for now since you are in a cultivation world. You can learn the other ones if you ever visit the other worlds. Ning was a little overwhelmed by the sheer amount of choices. However, since they would be mostly useless to him now, he stopped bothering with them. Now that he had a tool to exactly tell apart someone's cultivation, he decided to use it. He looked at one of the women washing their bodies and stared for a few seconds. Suddenly, the word chi condensation first realm popped into his mind. Oh, so breaking through once only puts you on the first realm, huh? He was a little taken aback. He had assumed that gathering chi alone was enough for one to enter the chi condensation realm, but it seemed that only put them onto the path of a cultivator. One had to still break through from being a mortal human to become a proper cultivator. He switched his gaze to an older man who was bathing himself. He was at chi condensation first realm as well. Ning looked through the different people and they were all at chi condensation first realm. Ning then switched his gaze to Haisi, who was also chi condensation first realm. But since he had broken through in just 20 days with 2 hours a day worth of cultivation, he must have been halfway through if not more in the first realm. Sigh, my body's talent is really bad, he said as he shook his head. I am at chi condensation first realm as well, right? he thought and checked himself, and disappointingly, he was. Oh, let's use the second and third layer of the chi cultivation analysis skill, he thought and started focusing on high C once more. He used the skill and it was still showing just the cultivation base and not the name. Do I focus more? He wondered and tried to concentrate on high C a little more. He could feel himself getting a little tired mentally when the name high C human popped up in his mind. Oh, so it mentions the species of the cultivator as well? He wondered, quite happy. He then focused once more, this time much harder than before. He was not used to it, so it took some time, but he finally managed to see the full information of high C, which he admitted was quite useless. Ah, I should have known it would all be a giant waste of time and mental strength. High C barely knew two different techniques. The sun god's morning cleansing technique and the midnight domain cultivation method, a cultivation technique for those with high yin abundance. Erg, my head hurts, Ning said as he massaged his head a little. I should buy the body cultivation analysis as well. Arhhhh suddenly, a loud scream sounded from behind him. He immediately turned around to see a giant and slim body appear out of the ocean and start attacking the villagers. The braver villagers immediately started punching and kicking the attacker with all they could. The remaining villagers who weren't used to fighting started evacuating, running away from either side of Ning. Ning, however, stood there looking at the thing that had just popped out of the ocean. The demon, Fufuliki. Slick bluish-green body with a head that stood nearly 10 meters above water while its entire body wasn't even out yet. Two bright yellow eyes shined with deep golden light that looked straight at the villagers as if they were food. Ning was unable to tell at first if it was only the neck sticking out of the water or the whole body, but after seeing the face he was sure what was sticking out was definitely partly body. This was specially cleared once he saw the forked tongue sticking out from the demon from in between two fangs. A snake monster, he couldn't help but shout out loud. The demon, Fufuliki, was actually a giant snake that roamed the waters around these islands. It had made this place a hunting ground and as such the place was now devoid of any food for the villagers. Attack! One of the villagers shouted. The group of brave men and women charged towards the giant snake to attack it. Without a single hesitation, they started to attack the snake with numerous punches and kicks. Having broken through to the chi condensation first realm, their bodies were now ever so nimble when it came to fighting. However, not having learned a single technique, they still had to resort to just kicks and punches no matter what their cultivation base was. *T. I should have taught them something. I only focused on cultivation and not fighting at all. Ning started to get a little annoyed at himself. He kept looking at the monster, not daring to fight. He probably wouldn't have dared to fight the monster even if he was as strong or stronger than the villagers. It was just too scary for him. He couldn't tell if he was scared because of the monster or because of the aura it gave off, but he was scared nonetheless. He slammed a fist onto his thighs to stop them from shaking. Stop being scared. You are a cultivator now. You will have to take part in worse battles from this point forward. Besides, you are immortal. You won't die even if that thing manages to beat you. The snake's fighting style was simple. It would just slam its head on the villagers from time to time and shoot out salt water at them. It would also hit them with its tail some of the time. It seemed the snake didn't know any techniques either. Still, it hurt the villagers quite a lot. Not enough to break their bones or anything, but enough to have pain coursing through their body, making them unable to fight for much longer. The villagers were much stronger now thanks to the fixed sun god's morning cleansing technique and the cultivation technique, but it seemed the demon Fufuliki wasn't slacking off either. It's a cultivator, right? Ning thought. Then I should be able to see its cultivation base. He immediately started focusing on the monster. His head was still aching from looking at the third layer of information through chi cultivation analysis, so when he started focusing on the monster, even the first layer started hurting his head. Arg! He shouted through his pain and kept on looking. Finally, the information he wanted popped up. Chi condensation fourth realm. It's 3 realms higher than me. No wonder my head aches so much looking at it, he thought while grabbing his head. The villagers were still fighting, while he was at the back looking at the monster. The remaining villagers had arrived, including the chief to fight at this point. The ones who had run back had relayed the information of the demon appearing. Enaka, your body isn't strong enough yet. Please step back, the chief shouted as soon as he came. Ning didn't respond however, his head was still hurting from the use of the chi cultivation analysis, and didn't bother answering. He kept on looking at the fight between the villagers and the snake monster and thought, chi condensation realm increases your physical strength and defense a little, and monsters have naturally high physical strength, but it should not be enough to fight a horde of people who were body cultivators as well. How can it withstand the constant damage then? This was a truly confusing thing that Ning was witnessing. He then had a thought, could it be the snake is a body cultivator as well? That was the only thing that made sense. No, wait. If the snake is truly a body cultivator, then how are the villagers okay? They should have multiple broken bones if they weren't dead already, Ning thought. So it's not a body cultivator? Haisi, take Enaka and leave the place, the chief shouted at Haisi, who was also participating in the fight. Yes, chief, he said and walked up to Ning. Enaka, let's leave, he said. Wait, Ning said and started focusing on the snake monster once more. However, this time, he was trying to view the second and if possible, the third layer. If it's not the body, then it has to be a technique, Ning believed. The intense head-splitting ache returned as if it had never left and was back with a much greater force as well. Arg, he struggled through the pain, barely holding onto his wits to check the information. Enaka, are you alright? Please, let us leave, Haisi said. Ning gritted his teeth, trying to withstand the pain, and said, just a little more. Finally, two different pieces of information popped up in his head. The first one was the name and the cultivation base of the snake monster. It was called a yin demon serpent. He had only been able to go up to the second layer of analysis. However, the second information popping up in his head was much worse than the first one. It was a warning from the system. Host has used a lot of mental strength and is now at a critical mental state. Any more loss in mental strength will make the system resort to a forced comatose state to preserve the host's mind. Arg, Ning shouted as this was the most intense mental pain he had felt to date. Arg, Ning kept on screaming due to the intense headache he was feeling right now. A little more pain and he would go mad from it. Enaka, are you alright? Haisi looked horrified listening to the terrifying scream his supposed god was producing. He didn't know what to do and was frozen at the place with his arms in front of him. Enaka, what is going on? The chief came running back to Ning and Haisi. Seeing Ning not respond, he then asked Haisi. What happened? I thought I told you to take him back. The chief started to get a little angry. I tried to. I asked Enaka to come back with me, but then he said a little more and then immediately started screaming, Haisi replied. The chief looked conflicted for a second. He then shouted out loud, everyone, retreat. The villagers who had been fighting suddenly stopped when they were called, and immediately retreated. What's wrong, chief? They asked. Something is wrong with Enaka, we need to stop the battle for today. We will take care of the monster some other day, the chief said. Haisi, carry Enaka. We are going back to the village. Haisi complied and took Ning on his shoulders, who was still constantly gritting his teeth, complaining about his hurting head the entire way through. He kept up the gritting and even broke out in screams a couple of times. As they were about to reach the village, Ning gritted his teeth once more and spoke through his pain, take me back to my house. Haisi stopped walking and hesitated whether to do what he said or not. On one hand, Ning seemed to be really hurt. But on the other hand, he was their god. Haisi turned around to the chief waiting for his orders instead. Enaka, you are unwell. We must take you to the village to make sure you are treated well, the chief said. Arg, just do what I say. Tita, take me to my house, he once more spoke through his pain. The chief also fell into the same dilemma as Haisi, but unlike Haisi, he came up with a choice soon. Alright, take Enaka back to his house, but you stay there. If anything happens, call us immediately, the chief said. Okay. Haisi immediately started running towards Ning's house out in the forest. Within a minute or two, he reached it and got inside. Ning's pain had lessened enough to the point where he could start focusing on other things than just pain itself. Lay me down, on that thing, he said with a broken sentence. Haisi slowly lowered him down to the pile of leaves. As he was being lowered down, Ning saw the necklace on Haisi's arm. He wanted to just leave the body right now, and go enter that necklace to be away from this pain. System, send me there, he thought through his hazy mind. System recommends you do not leave your human body right now. Arg. Why? Ning shouted out loud. Enaka. Haisi said, but didn't get a response. Your current pain is being shared through you and your human mind. Switching bodies at this point will transfer all the pain to you and can cause you to go into a comatose state. Arg. He didn't bother with the system anymore. Haisi stayed with him the whole night, throughout which he would constantly shout in pain. The pain lessened as time went on, but it was painful enough for him to shout until the morning. Only in the morning did the pain lessen to the point he didn't have to care about it. "Hi-C, you can go now." "I'm fine," he said, sending Hi-C back to the village to practice the body cultivation in the morning. As the pain lessened to the point where he was numb to it, Ning fell asleep. He slept soundly for nearly 20 hours and woke up at around 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. He looked around with his drowsy eye, trying to figure out what had happened. "Ah, that's right, I fell asleep after the pain went away," he thought. He recalled back as much as he could and asked, "You said something right when I started hurting with pain. Can you repeat that?" he asked. "Yes, host has used a lot of mental strength and is now at a critical mental state. Any more loss in mental strength will make the system resort to a forced comatose state to preserve the host's mind." Ning read through the notification and asked, "So, my mental strength is bad?" he asked. "It is better than average when compared to normal humans." Ning was a little surprised when he learned that. "So, I'm not as strong as most cultivators is what you're trying to say, right?" he asked. No cultivators start increasing mental strength only at foundation establishment realm. You are still stronger mentally when compared to most chi condensation realm cultivators. "I see, and even then, it wasn't enough for me to see that demon's information through my analysis, he thought. "I assume I will need to increase my mental strength to be able to see that snake's information, right?" he asked. "Yes. How can I do that? Show me," he said. "There are 3 ways to increase your mental strength. The first option is to cultivate to a realm at or above foundation establishment. I can't do that. Not with my trash body right now. It will take a few more years for me to adapt to the chi in this world," he said. The second option is to buy improved mental ability from the shop. This, however, is costly. "Alright, I remember you mentioning something about me being able to increase my mental ability. So this was what you were talking about. What is the cost for it?" he asked. "Doubling mental strength costs 2,150,000,000 energy. That's way too much energy required. I can't do that at the moment. What is the final way?" The third and most effective way to increase your mental strength is to completely use up your mental strength without going over the critical limit. When mental strength grows back, you grow it a little more every time. As long as you do in moderate amount, little by little, the mental strength can add up to a lot. "I see. So I must have grown a bit now, haven't I?" Ning asked. Yes, Ning contemplated on what that meant for a little bit longer and went on to cultivate. With the earthly jade cultivation method, he started gathering the motes of light that were chi from the area, and quickly forgot about time. He only stopped cultivating towards the morning as it was time for the sun to come out. He walked outside and saw that there was still time for the sun to come out. So instead of doing nothing, he started to gather yin and turn it to sound in order to gather the energy for the day he had missed. He used it for a few moments. The first few seconds, it felt like it was working, but after that, the sound didn't reduce and only got louder as they kept on gathering around his body. He stopped, wondering what had just happened. He used the yin to heat conversion technique to see what the problem was, but he couldn't get it to work either. He couldn't absorb the heat energy at all. "That's weird," he thought. "Is something wrong with the system due to what happened yesterday?" "Status," he said as he decided to check what was wrong. Status name: Ning Ruigong Energy, 256,624,372 separated energy. Heat energy: 56,421,966 sound energy, 190,948,858. Chi energy: 19,253,548 skills, simultaneous thinking, beginner's map, intermediate clavis language, candlefire, yin to heat conversion technique, night vision eye, interdimensional storage, stopped time, 75 kg, air cutter, telekinesis, water filtration, earthly jade cultivation method, sun god's morning cleansing technique, chi cultivation analysis. "Whoa, when did I collect so much chi?" he said with a surprise. He didn't remember collecting chi at all during the last month. Every time he cultivated, he would be capped out for the day, so there wasn't even a chance for him to collect chi even if he wanted to. "Wait, did I collect all of this in just 4 hours?" he said in shock. "System, am I right?" he asked. "Yes. You collected 19,253,548 chi during your last cultivation session. I gather this much chi and I'm still only chi condensation first realm. That's absurd. Just how strong are cultivators? They seem to be more broken than me who already thought this system was broken, he said. Cultivators cannot absorb all the chi they gather, they only absorb a minute amount of the chi they gather. The higher the cultivation base, the better they get at gathering the chi. A good body and cultivation technique also increases the rate at which one can gather the chi. Oh, is that so? He didn't really care what the system meant at first, but then he remembered something. Wait a second, so the reason the villagers are cultivating so fast is not only because they have a good body, but also a good cultivation technique? He asked. Yes. Phew, thank God, he said with a sigh of relief. I'm not as untalented as I thought. I just have ** tie cards handed to me. Although, that should be fixed soon. Also, I should really get at least the beginner's cultivation knowledge. The basic one barely has any information aside from the bare bones ones. He once again looked at the status and saw how close his chi energy was to reaching 25 million energy, and he started smiling again. I can double my energy cap once more when I reach 25 million chi, right system? He asked. No, huh? Ning was a little taken aback. Why not? I thought I could double my cap using all sorts of different forms of energy? He asked. You can only increase energy cap using energy that you can gather by yourself without the human body. Since special energy such as chi, mana, magic particles, aura, etc. are only applicable in specific planets and planetary systems, they cannot be used to increase energy cap. What? So I can never exceed by energy cap with chi or the other energy? Well, then what can I use? He asked. You can use the next energy type once you unlock it. Ning was a little surprised to hear that. It wasn't long ago he got chi, so he had stopped caring about unlocking the new types of energy. New energy? Which is? He asked. Kinetic energy, the system said. Kinetic energy. He tried remembering what that was. If I remember correctly, it has to do with, what was it? Motion, right? How does that work? He asked. You can collect energy from objects in motion relative to the body you inhabit. So if I can see them move, then I can absorb the energy. I don't know how that works, but that sounds nice. When do I get it then? I only recently got chi, so it shouldn't be that close, right? He asked. There are one or more hidden requirements to complete before unlocking all other forms of energy. And you're not going to tell me, right? Although, it wouldn't hurt to ask. What are the requirements? He asked. The requirements are hidden, huh? Knew it. Ning was used to the system's antics about keeping upcoming stuff secret, so he didn't bother with it. He waited for a little bit longer as the sun approached the horizon. He did his usual movement in accordance with the sun god's morning cleansing technique, and his body started glowing a little before dimming as the chi he gathered entered his body and got rid of any yin and yang energies in his body, preparing him to accept the pure yang chi from the sun. Just, as usual, the yang chi entered his body and cleansed it from the inside, making him a little bit stronger. Once he was done with body cultivation, he went to the village once again. Ning didn't even reach the village before he saw people coming towards him. They can see me from so far away, huh? He thought. Enaka, are you all right? The chief was the first person to get to the place, and so, he asked him immediately. Yes, I am all right. My headache is now gone, Ning said meekly. He was still worried about what the villagers would think about him. What happened out there, Enaka? I thought you would help us fight the demon, but you stood there doing nothing. Instead, you got yourself a headache and we had to bring you back, the chief asked. Ning froze. He didn't have anything clever to say right now to get out of the situation, so he simply told them the truth. I got scared, Ning said. Scared? You, Enaka? The chief was surprised. The villagers behind him also looked at him with wide eyes. Yes, I was scared. I have never been in a fight before, and that was my first time seeing something like that snake with my own human eyes, he said. The chief spoke up. But how can you become scared, Enaka? The chief asked. Why can't I? I'm just a normal person after all, Ning said. But you are an all-powerful god, Enaka, another villager said. No, I'm not all-powerful. I can only do a handful of things at best, Ning said. You are still a god, though. How can gods not be all-powerful? A woman asked. I told you, I'm not all-pow. You are our sun god. You should be able to easily defeat that demon, Enaka, another villager said. I am too weak, Rig. Enaka. Why haven't you gotten rid of that demon already? A child asked. Ning was starting to get frustrated. I told you, Gu. We can't defeat the demon by ourselves, Enaka. If you are waiting for us to defeat the demon by ourselves, please don't and just kill it, an elderly woman said. His frustration grew ever more. I can, enaka, you. I am not inikaka. Ning burst out. I am not enaka. I am just a normal person who has been deceiving you people. I am no god. I am not even a human anymore. I am nothing. The crowd went silent when they heard this. During the silence, Ning finally realized what he had just spoken. Oh no, he thought. He looked around at the people, including Hi-C, whose eyes had gone from surprise to shock to disbelief. F*K. I'm done, aren't I? He thought. Before anyone could even speak, he vanished from the spot. The villagers couldn't comprehend what had just happened there and were left speechless. Ning arrived at his potato farm, which was ready to be harvested. He was teleported right near an empty field, and so, he just sat down on the ground and then laid there on his back. Did that really just happen? He wondered. He was at just as much disbelief as the villagers, if not more. Oh my god, I ruined everything, didn't I? He thought. I couldn't even control my emotions, and let my anger and annoyance take the best of me, he sighed as he thought. Oh god, why did I even do that? He felt really bad about the whole thing and wanted to do something to take his mind off of the situation right now. So, he started to harvest the potatoes that were ready. He didn't bother using any abilities or skills. He simply just took a hoe and started digging the potatoes out. He did it as slowly as possible to waste the most amount of time. After he was done digging out all the potatoes, he went on to wash them all. He once again took as long as possible while washing them. He then proceeded to dig the entire field, putting the remaining potato plant into the dirt to decay and work as fertilizers for later on. Night came by and the air grew chilly. He gathered up a few dry sticks and laid down next to them. Using candlefire, he lit the sticks and stayed there in its warmth. However, the ground he was laying in wasn't warmed, nor was it soft. Due to the irregular gusts of wind at night time, the campfire became unstable, and before Ning could even do anything about it, it extinguished. Just my luck, he thought. He tried to stay without the fire for a bit longer, but the coldness was bone deep and he needed to leave. Do I just go back? I can't act like nothing happened, right? What do I even say? He started wondering. But right now was not the time for an answer. He needed a better shelter. Let's just go back for now, he thought, and teleported back. Ah, finally, he said as he laid down on the soft ground in his home. Now that he was back, Ning decided to either cultivate or go to sleep depending on what his mood ends up being. Suddenly, he could hear rustling from the outside. Inikaka, are you back? A voice came from outside. Ning was startled at first, but then he realized that he recognized that voice. Hesitatingly, he asked, Hic. WW, what are you doing here? Ah, you're finally back, Inikaka. I have been waiting here for you since this morning. I was afraid you weren't going to return today, Hic said with a jovial voice. Why would you wait for me? Ning asked. Also, I told you guys this morning. I'm not Inikaka. I never was. I'm just a fraud, nothing else. Ning was starting to feel dejected again. What's a fraud? Hic asked, having never heard of that word before. Just someone who takes advantage of other situations for their own gain. Just like me. I saw that you were struggling and took advantage of you to have you do different things for my own gain. I did all of this just so I could leave the island as soon as possible, Ning said. Hic quietly took the information in, and asked, then why haven't you? Then why haven't you? Ning heard Hic say. Why haven't I what? He asked. Why haven't you left us yet? Hic asked. I can't right now. That demon snake is blocking my way, and I need to defeat it before I can leave this island and go somewhere else, Ning said. Do you though? Hic asked. Of course, why else would I waste my time here? Ning asked. But Inikaka, you can just disappear to anywhere you want. You can reach the next island over in the blink of an eye. Is the demon really in your way? Hic asked. Ning couldn't come up with an answer. Given how much energy he had, he could leave this place right now and disappear to thousands upon thousands of kilometers away. Why hadn't he left yet? You can do so many amazing things. You can live inside small and big rocks. You can create anything you want out of thin air. I don't see how someone who can create so many miracles would be bound to a small island like this just because of a snake demon, Hic said. Also, you call yourself what was it? Fraud. Someone who only does things for their own gain. And yet you teach a whole village of illiterate idiots enough so they can read and write. You teach us something so surreal as chi cultivation and help us fix our original cultivation technique. You go out of your way to go to a new island and live there for months just so you can send us villagers food. You even went as far as to make a small child of no consequence like me into who I am today. Are you going to tell me that me becoming strong was a personal gain of yours too? Haisi asked. I know it wasn't, Ning said. The world he had built up in his head about the villagers just being a stepping tool for him was all crumbling to the ground. He needed a kid to tell him what he was doing. But that doesn't change the fact that I am a coward, who couldn't even help you, Ning said. Who isn't, Enaka? Haisi said. Remember the first time you had me train and we ended up meeting the demon Fufuliki? I ran away from that place faster than I have ever run. You on the other hand stood your ground. You also must have done something there for you to get such a severe headache. By comparison, you are much braver than I am, Inikaka, Haisi said. I only got braver after I got stronger. You have much more to go too, Inikaka. I am sure your bravery will show up on its own one day when you get stronger than you are now, Haisi said. Ning fell into contemplation. Everything the kid said made sense at some level. Although he was too scared to fight the demon, he had stood his ground to look at its information even when the kid was telling him to run away. I stood my ground. That's correct, he said out loud. It felt like a massive weight had just lifted off of his heart. He took a deep breath and said, Thank you, Haisi. I am glad I can finally be of some help to you, Inikaka, Haisi said with a happy voice. You have always been of help to me. Since the first day I arrived, Ning said. He was smiling too at this point. Also, stop calling me Inikaka. I am not the son, you can call me Ning, he said. Ah, Inikaka, you seem to be mistaken about something, Haisi said. Inikaka does not mean the sun. It does not? But I thought you prayed to the sun, your Inikaka every day? He asked. No, Inikaka is just our word for a benefactor. Since the sun is our benefactor, for the most part, we call it Inikaka. Although, at some point, we stopped using the name sun, and just called it Inikaka. But the fact still remains that Inikaka is just our word for a benefactor. At first, we thought you were an avatar of the sun, so we kept calling you Inikaka. Now we know you have nothing to do with the sun, however, that still doesn't change the fact about how much you have helped us. At the end of the day, sun or not, you are still our benefactor. You are still our Inikaka, and all of us have unanimously agreed to keep on calling you so, Haisi said. Is that so? Ning was surprised to hear that. All this time, even with the intermediate Clavian language, it seemed he had the wrong information. Anyway, Inikaka, are you hungry? Do you need food? I'm sure the villagers will cook up something for you if you ask them to. They've been waiting for your return ever since you left this morning, Haisi said. It's fine. I already ate some fruits from the other island. You go and eat something yourself, Ning said. Okay, Inikaka, if you say so, Haisi said and turned around to leave. He stopped mid-track and turned around to say, also, Inikaka, make sure to come to the village in the morning tomorrow. Morning? Why? Ning asked. For your lessons, of course, Haisi said. Why you guys still want that? He asked. Of course. The villagers were already anxious to miss a day of the lesson because you had a headache yesterday, and then today you left without even letting us say anything. We were all really bored all day due to the lack of lessons, Haisi said. Ning smiled and said, all right, I will come by to teach some new things tomorrow. Haisi smiled as well. I will let the villagers know. Also, Inikaka, he said. I'm really happy you came back. Haisi ran away after saying this. Ning stayed in his house and chuckled to himself and said, I can't believe I let a child talk me into feeling better. Vibrations rang along Ning's body as he constantly turned all yin to sound. The sound kept on adding up and growing louder. He would stop and redo it all over again, all so that he could have a headache at the end of it. After 40 to 50 minutes of doing this, he finally got a severe enough headache that he had to stop for the day and sleep. However, instead, he went directly to cultivate. He had a rough start when comparing to others. Although he could fix it quite easily, he wanted the struggle for now. Maybe I should make another body that is really good at cultivation, just so I can compare the two, Ning thought. I should do that. Hey, system. Can you make a body, a very weak-looking one, with the best talent, body, and spiritual roots you can make, said Ning. The spiritual roots will cost 500 billion energy, the body will cost 2.5 trillion energy. The talent will cost 1.27 trillion energy. Would you like to put them on the auto-buy list? Ning chuckled to himself after seeing the ridiculous numbers. Sure. Also, show me some techniques that focus on damage that average cultivators can learn in less than a month, he asked. The system showed him a list of techniques that he could learn. Instead of being a straight-up skill that would be added to his repertoire, he actually decided to get them in the form of a book so that he could teach it to everyone. He got 3 books exactly and kept them in his storage. After that, he proceeded to cultivate for the rest of the night. Early morning, he stopped his cultivation to cultivate his body. His headache was mostly gone and he could function normally. He would just have to wait for it to be completely gone to start doing it all over again. After finishing his cultivation and collecting the energy for the day, he went back to the village. Will they accept me? Heisi said they would, but he was still anxious about the situation. He walked slowly, but once again, people were already coming his way after seeing him. His heart started racing and he braced for whatever was coming. But what came was a group of people with wide smiles. Enaka, you're back. We missed you for these last 2 days, someone said. Are you okay, Enaka? Another person asked. We're sorry we made you sad, a child said. He sighed in relief. Heisi was right, he thought. I'm sorry for lying to you people. I should have told you, people, I was not a god from the very first moment. I was afraid you wouldn't accept me if you guys knew who I was, he said. The villagers told him they would never and reiterated how he was their benefactor. That lifted up Ning's spirit a lot. Do we get to learn today? Somebody asked. Ning smiled and said, yes of course. Come, I have something new to teach you guys. Ning went back to the village center and took out 3 different books. Look at this. This right here are books that will teach you 3 different techniques, Ning said. The villagers looked around confused. They didn't know what techniques were or why they had to learn them. I saw you guys fight the other day, and honestly, without any techniques, you will probably never win against the demon serpent. You are all at chi condensation 1st realm, while the demon serpent is at chi condensation 4th realm. It is many times stronger than you all. However, you guys have a strong body thanks to your body cultivation, so, if you were to just learn some more techniques to improve your attacks, I'm sure we can take down the demon serpent. So, for the next few weeks, we will be training these techniques. The first of the technique is this claw technique called Fanged Claws technique. I have 5 copies here, distribute amongst yourself to those who have the strongest arm strength, he said as he took out 5 books and passed them along. The second one is called the Twin Step Movement technique. The ones with the strongest legs take it for now, he said as he took out 5 more books and passed them along. The third one is called the One True Strike technique. It's a spear technique that the ones who are used to fighting with spears should take, he said and passed along 5 more books. Around 12 people stood up once they got the books and left to study them. For the ones that stayed, Ning started to teach them farming. He brought out the newly grown potatoes and handed them over to them to teach them how to cook them. He spent a few dozen energies to make pots to cook the potatoes in. Once it was done, Ning himself left to read the books too. Let's see how good my ability to learn something new is if it isn't directly handed to me by the system, he said as he took out the original copy of the Twin Step Movement technique and started learning it. At first, he didn't understand anything. The book talked about manipulating chi inside the body, strengthening one's legs and body, how one should move their body, and how they should switch their legs. It was all confusing to Ning, who had never read anything like this before. But slowly, he started to understand a bit and a bit more. Oh, so I should propel myself forward using both feet at once, instead of one every time I have to increase my speed drastically. So that's how I am supposed to do it, huh? Ning stood up and went to an open area to try for himself. He circulated his chi, strengthened his legs, and was ready to jump forward. With a single push, he burst forward, or so he would have hoped. Instead, the sand under his feet slid away, making him slip and fall on his face. Cough cough, this is going to take a while. In a single leap, Ning managed to cross over 30 meters of distance. The moment he landed, he knocked the ground once more with both of his feet to immediately change direction. He made a sharp right turn, reaching another spot over 30 meters in distance. He kept on doing that until he was nothing but a blur. He then immediately came upon a tree and pulled out his hand, his fingers bent a little to imitate a claw. With a single slash, he put a large gash in the tree in front of him. He then took out his spear and pulled it back until the tip was right next to his face. With a single thrust, he let the spear hit the tree in front of him, turning the large tree trunk into smithereens. Plop plop plop, fruits started falling from the top of the tree and the whole tree toppled over without support. He picked one of the fruits and used a small amount of water from his storage to wash it before eating it. He walked back and reached his farm where there were a handful of people digging the ground and applying crops to it. It had been 2 months since he gave the villagers the new techniques. Most of them had already learned it and were only waiting for a date to go attack the demon. Ning, however, only just finished learning it. I should go with them to attack the snake after my next breakthrough, he thought. In his eyes, they were more than strong enough to fight the snake. Also, they were all over the chi condensation's second realm. He was only delaying the fight so that he could take part in it as well, and not feel like the coward he was last time. I have mostly given them all they need. They have learned all the different cultivation methods and techniques. They know how to read and write. They even know how to farm and cook different foods now. I just need to teach them how to make salt-free water and I won't have to worry about them anymore, he thought. System. Help me find a water purifying technique that these villagers can use to turn salt water into normal water, Ning said. Ning had already taught them how to filter the water using normal methods of stacking rocks, pebbles, and sands. But that only filtered the water from the dirt and debris. It did nothing to block the salt in the water. For that, he would need to teach them a normal cultivator's technique. Ning had already asked for the system to make a book out of the technique he had learned, but the system responded with, skills that cost energy cannot be taught to anyone other than hosts. As such, he was now asking the system again for a different one, but he did not get the result he wanted. There are no such techniques in the system. Ning was a little taken aback. This reminds me of the first time the shop was unlocked. Does the shop really not have anything? Or can I just not buy it right now? He asked. The shop has no such techniques at any price point. Oh, he was truly surprised this time. This was the first time he asked the system for something to buy and it gave back 0 results. What do I do then? He asked. Since there are no such techniques in the system suggests you make one. Make techniques. I can make stuff. He was quite surprised. He could understand making stuff for physical things, but a skill. That was a first for him. Yes. The shop originally has no skills. All the ones it has are ones made by the different hosts. Oh. So all the skills I have bought till now are ones made by the hosts before me? He asked. Yes, all right then. Let's start making a new technique. How do I do that? He asked. You give exact instruction to the system to let it know about the skill you want to buy. Okay. Then let's make a seawater salt remover skill that is usable with chi, he said. Confirmed. Do you want the skill to be an insta-learn skill or read and learn skill? Is one more advantageous than the other? He asked. Insta-learn skills are directly taught to the person's brain. Read and learn skills are usually in the form of words or illustrations that the person will have to learn on their own. Insta-learn skills are vastly more expensive and also a one-time learn skills. But they are incredibly fast to teach and the person can learn it with a 100% guarantee. Read and learn skills are way cheaper and can be used multiple times. But the person has to read the skill and learn it on their own, so there is no guarantee of them learning it. I need all of them to learn it if possible and leave it behind for their future generation, so it should be better if I make a book out of it. Use the read and learn version, he said. Confirmed. Do you want the chi usage to be high or low? Low. Wait. Why do you ask? Does it change how expensive the skill is? He asked. Yes. Low chi usage skills are more expensive. They should be on the 4th chi condensation realm very soon. High C is already reaching 3rd realm, so make the chi usage to 10% of a 4th realm chi condensation cultivator's total chi, he said. Confirmed. Maximum amount of seawater that can be desalinated with 10% chi. The amount? Let's see. A bucket full should be okay, so 10 liters, Ning said. Confirmed. Do you want to buy this skill in information form or in written form? Nah, I don't want to reiterate what they can easily read. Just write it in their own language, Ning said. Confirmed. Will you buy a book of seawater desalination technique for 88 million energy? That's quite expensive, but whatever. I got enough energy. Buy it. Once the farming was done, he held hands with everyone and teleported back to the village. It was still daytime, so he decided to hand the new technique off to High C. Take this and learn it. It will help you create salt-free water on your own, Ning said as he gave the book to High C. High C took the book with a dumbfounded face and asked, Are you really planning on leaving us so soon, enaka? He asked. Ning simply smiled a little. I can't stay here forever. I originally didn't leave because I didn't know where exactly I was on the map. The world is large and too many things looked similar. But now, I know where I am, and I know where to go. Once I defeat the demon with the help of you guys, I will leave this island and venture to the rest of the planet, Ning said. Haisi fell into thought as well. Ning had taught the villagers how small their lives on this island was, and they had shown interest in going out too. But he didn't want to take care of them given how dangerous the outer world was, so he had refused. Ning saw Hiesi's depressed look and rubbed his hair. You can leave later after you reach higher realms too, he said. Hiesi's face turned to a bittersweet smile as he said, I don't think that is possible. Given how talented I am, I will need to stay back to protect my people from the other threats that are lurking in this world. Ning chuckled. You're quite mature, aren't you? He said. He left Haisi to read the book and went to prepare for his upcoming battle against the demon. That meant, he had to break through as fast as possible. He spent the next couple of days and nights doing nothing but cultivating. He took out a bit of time in his schedule to cultivate his body and his mind, but other than that, the majority of the time was spent cultivating his chi. After 2 to 3 days, he felt himself barely gathering any more chi. Almost like his body was full of it and he couldn't accept it anymore. There was something blocking his progress. Is this what they call a bottleneck? He wondered. He tried cultivating for another day, but there was no progress. Finally, on the 5th day, there was progress. With a massive oomph that rang throughout his body, he managed to break past the barrier and reach the second realm of chi condensation. Finally, I did it, he thought. He looked at his own body and was happy that he wouldn't have to clean himself once again since no filth left his body this time. He focused on himself and saw that he was truly on the second realm of chi condensation. He stood up and walked outside of his house to check how much better he had gotten. He practiced a few movements in the claw technique and realized he had gotten stronger. It is time. Early in the morning, Ning finished his body cultivation and walked to the village. The villagers were getting ready for their own things when they saw Ning walk into the village. Staying in the sun for so long, his skin was pretty tanned as well. While it wasn't as dark as theirs, his was pretty dark as well. When they saw him walk in, they got ready for another new lesson, but they did not expect what came out of his mouth next. I am going to defeat the demon Fufuliki today, he said, shocking the villagers and leaving them speechless. They looked at him with wide eyes for a few seconds and then, woohoo! Everyone started cheering. Oi, old man, go bring the spears, Hisini screamed. You come with me as well, the old man said. Are we doing this today, Inikaka? The chief asked. He had become stronger as well and was ready to fight. In fact, he was so eager that his hands shook from excitement. The anger and hatred in his eyes towards the demon serpent was unmistakable. No, you absolutely aren't going. Bellini was trying to keep her son from joining the fight. But it's okay, mother. I am strong now. I fought the monster before too. Besides, Inikaka will be there. I'm sure he has ways to protect the lot of us. Bellini hesitated for a little more, but after the consistent urging from her son, she accepted. Once everyone was ready, half of them holding spears in hand, they left. The chief led the people this time, with Ning a step behind. He was the heart behind this operation, but he couldn't be the brains of it. He had no knowledge in leading groups of people in a fight, and being the weakest of them all in terms of body and chi, he decided to not be the vanguard of the battle. They reached the beach and looked out for the demon to show up. Go make some noise, the chief ordered a few men and women who jumped into the water and started splashing around. At first, it didn't seem like anything was coming, but soon they saw a disturbance in the water, and before anyone could say anything, the demon serpent arrived. Ready, the chief shouted. Everyone with their spears pointed it at the monster, and those with none got into a fighting stance with their fingers in the shape of claws. With such strong techniques and cultivation, Ning didn't think it was possible for them to lose. Nearly 100 second realm chi condensation cultivators with extreme body strength versus a 4th realm chi condensation monster. The monster should lose no matter what. But it wasn't taking much damage last time, so Ning decided to look at its info one more time. Due to the training for over 2 months, his mental strength was far more formidable than the last time. His cultivation was in the higher realm, so that brought some levity as well. As such, he looked at the monster and started focusing on it. The demon serpent looked ever so beautiful in daylight. Its bluish-green skin sent iridescent colors scattering everywhere when the light hit it at a certain angle. It stuck out its twin forked tongue and wiggled it around, looking at everyone in front of it as if they are nothing but nuisance before it. The villagers wasted no second and immediately started attacking the monster. Using their movement technique, they quickly reached the serpent in the ocean and sent out both claws and spear thrusts at it. However, contrary to their expectations, the serpent barely took any damage. There were multitudes of minor cuts and scratches on the monster's body, but nothing that could seriously damage it. The snake slammed its body on the villagers, sending them flying backward. Ning put out his hand towards the flying villagers who were flying past him and stopped them from flying back further with his telekinesis. Catching so many people with telekinesis cost him both energy and mental strength due to the differences in their weight. Ning's face was full of sweat as he frowned in worry. He had wanted to check the abilities of the snake and see why it was so strong, but just the first layer alone had shocked him. The snake was now in the 5th realm of chi condensation. *T. It's the same difference once more. In fact, it might be stronger than last time, he thought. He sent out a massive air cutter towards the snake with at least 20 million energy behind it, but that ended up being weaker than the villagers' normal attacks. Multiple creatures from the next island would have died to that attack just now, but it was nothing to the demon snake. He sent another air cutter out with 100 million energy behind it. He managed to create a deep gash on the snake's body, but it was only a little more damage than what the villagers were doing with their spears. I didn't want it to be true, but it turns out, even hundreds of millions of energies aren't much when compared to normal cultivators, he thought. He took out a spear from his interdimensional storage. It was blood red in color and was made from something called blood iron, which was mostly used in making artifacts. According to the system, while the spear wasn't an artifact itself, it had the strength and durability of a low-tiered spirit artifact. For the first time since meeting it, Ning finally rushed towards the monster to attack it. He employed the twin-step movement technique to immediately rush to the demon. Once he reached it, he used the one true strike with his full power behind the attack to pierce into the snake. He barely even grazed the skin of the snake. Up close, he could see that the body of the snake was full of scales that worked like armor put together. They seemed really hard to cut through with normal attacks. But there was something else there as well. He couldn't really see it, but the iridescent light, it wasn't coming from the snake's skin, but a layer on top of it. It was an incredibly thin layer of what looked like mist that covered its skin. What is that? He wondered. Suddenly, a tail came towards him from the side. He could only put up his arm to block the attack when he was hurled away back into the beach. Crack! He heard something break. Arg! He shouted. He looked and saw that his right arm was broken, dangling from below the elbow. Inikaka, are you okay? Oh no, your arm. Hi-C came running towards him. So did the other people. Even after so many months of training, he couldn't match up to the villagers who were training since childhood. Go fight, I'm fine, he said, urging everyone to leave. Only Hi-C stayed behind to make sure he was truly okay. Ning quickly spends 10 million of energy to fix his arm immediately. I'm fine, don't worry about me, he said. Ning looked back towards the serpent, still curious about the thin layer of mist. He decided to not care about the mental strength and started focusing intensely on the snake. Once he got past the first layer of information, he could feel some stress on his mind as he saw the next information that was its name, Yin Demon Serpent. After that, he focused a little more and tried to go past the second layer of information as well. It took a lot of effort as his head hurt quite a bit, but he managed to do it. He looked at the final piece of information. He was shocked. The final piece of information, which was the skills of the Demon Serpent, was a single skill called Yin Armor. System, give me information on Yin Armor right now, he said. He chose a 10 million costing intermediate knowledge on Yin Armor and quickly understood what it was. The demon was using a technique to gather Yin energy from the surroundings and inside itself to create a sort of barrier around its body. The barrier formed a flexible armor around its body that blocked a lot of the damage the villagers were dishing out. If one could strip the snake of the armor, they should be able to deal proper damage to it. The only thing left now was a way to get rid of that armor. Ning had two. Hi-C comes with me, he said and called Hi-C, who was about to go back to the fight after seeing that Ning was fine. Ning grabbed his slightly hurting head and walked to a different section of the beach. There was nothing but sand everywhere, and he needed rocks. Finally, he found some. He picked up a decently sized rock and handed it to Hi-C. Hi-C looked confused for a second looking at the stone in his hand and asked, "What should I do with the stone?" Ning smiled a little and said, "I have an idea." Bam! The chief got sent flying back towards the beach by the snake's tail. As soon as he landed on the beach, He immediately employed the movement technique and started running forward, back to the snake. The snake's body was started to show signs of redness all over it from bleeding through the numerous minor cuts. It seemed to be having trouble violently moving its head too. So, it only attacked with its tails. The chief had lost his spear some time ago and was using his claws to fight most of the time now. "Chief, our people are starting to get really hurt," someone said from his side while attacking the serpent. "What?" The chief was surprised. He hadn't noticed, but at some point, his people had stopped returning to attack due to the pain running through their bodies. The chief couldn't understand why, but the demon was far stronger than he used to be. "Tell the others to take the injured back to safety," the chief spoke to the man. However, the man didn't respond. When the chief stopped attacking and turned around to look at the man, he only saw the demon's tail in his place. The man had been attacked while they were talking and sent far back. Oh, no, he was now starting to realize that the situation was more severe than ever. Previously, even with just a dozen of people, they were an equal match to the demon. The demon would hurt them a bit, and they would hurt the demon a bit. It was an equal exchange of damage and neither truly ever won any fight. This was why they could never make the demon leave the island, and this was also why the demon couldn't make them leave the island. But now it was different. The demon was winning, and if they didn't do something quick, the only thing waiting for them would be their extinction. This is bad. Just as he thought that he was once more sent back flying towards the shore. This time, he could truly feel the pain from the monster's attack. It was much stronger than before. Even then, the chief stood up and looked at the dozen or more people lying on the ground in pain. Thankfully, nobody seemed to have any bleeding going on. "Everyone, if you can stand up, leave this place at once. The demon is stronger than before and it's too dangerous to stay here," the chief shouted. "Help them," he said to the people who could walk. "What are we going to do now, chief?" someone asked. "This. We did not plan for this, chief. The monster is too strong," someone else said. "I know," the chief shouted in frustration. "Where is Enaka? He should be able to help us." They tried looking around and found him far away with Haisi. Just as the chief was about to call him, Ning's body fell to the ground, his hand and arm totally limp. The people who saw this got scared. "What happened? Did he get hit?" the chief shouted as he ran towards Haisi. However, before he could even reach there, Ning's body disappeared. This just shocked him more. Did Enaka leave us?" The people started getting scared. "Erg, I'm right here," Ning shouted from the stone on top of Hiesi's hand. Leaving his human body, the mental pain that came from the different techniques was a little stronger than before. "What is going on?" the chief asked. "Listen up, everyone," Ning said. "Haisi is going to throw me over to the snake. I know a way to stop it from using its defenses. You guys take the time to attack it, okay?" "Defenses? The snake has defenses?" The chief was surprised. "Yes, but don't worry about it. Let me take care of it. You guys just attack," Ning said. "Sigh, I will lose a lot of energy from this," he thought. "All right, I will see you guys after victory. Haisi, throw me," Ning said. Haisi stretched his arm as far back as he could, and in a smooth motion, hurled the stone directly towards the snake. A few other people were occupying the snake's attention, so it did not see the stone approach. As soon as the stone got near the snake, Ning used the technique. Parasite. His consciousness switched places from the rock to the snake. Suddenly, the whole world got a lot bigger for Ning. Holy sh*t, he thought. The snake had always been half underwater, so he couldn't its actual size. But now that he was inhabiting the snake, he could finally see that in length alone. The snake was over 40 meters long, with only a third of its body showing up out of the water. He tried to look around him but he could see nothing. The only place he could see with was the snake's eyes and mouth. Everywhere else was a layer of hazy mist. It was the same mist he needed to get rid of. He looked through the snake's eyes to see what it was seeing and saw the group of villagers ready with their spear, just waiting for him to order. "Do it," he shouted as loud as he can, using up a lot of energy to create the sound. Everyone who could move ran towards the snake to attack, with the chief taking the charge. Aside from the injured ones who could no longer move, not a single one stayed behind. Ning on the other hand activated the yin to heat conversion technique. His already hurting mind tinged with more pain. While the requirements for this technique were nothing compared to the chi cultivation analysis, using it while having a small headache really hurt him. He could slowly start feeling the yin energy around the snake disappear as it turned to heat energy. So, he looked outside to see if it was working. There he saw it. The mist started to slowly disappear as it gave way to the world around him. His plan was working. The mist cleared up and Ning could finally see everything clearly. He saw the snake coil up at the bottom of the shallow ocean. He saw the giant ocean behind the snake. And he saw the group of villagers running towards him and the snake. As soon as they reached the snake, they once more let out the relentless attacks with their spears and their claw-like hands. Deep cuts and wounds started all over the demon serpent's body. They were finally getting somewhere with their attacks. Yes, Ning shouted, seeing his plan work. The snake was starting to get uncomfortable with the suddenly increased amounts of damage and the creepy burning sensations it was getting all over its body. It started to once more move around its body, hitting the villagers with its tail in the process. But there were too many of them attacking right now. The snake couldn't target the villagers individually and started to hit the villagers one at a time. Ning was happy that his plan had succeeded. He had successfully managed to strip away the yin surrounding the snake, basically forming an armor protecting the snake from physical attacks. However, now with his doing, it was taking plenty of damage. Still, it's quite surprising. In fact, one could even call it weird, Ning thought. The snake is only using its head and tails to fight. It hasn't been trying to bite anyone yet. Does it not have venom despite the fact that it has fangs? The snake had not once changed its attack pattern, which surprised Ning. Ning started to believe it was similar to one of the many non-venomous snakes that was found back on Earth. Still, betting it all on a simple guess wasn't the right thing to do. System, give me information on this species of snake, he ordered. Before the system could even list out everything, he picked the intermediate version of the information and got it transferred to his mind. Suddenly, a whole lot of information about the snake popped up into his mind. The knowledge terrified him for a second. Is it really true? He was shocked. The Yin demon serpent was a ferocious race of serpents that was as dangerous as it was venomous. They were naturally adept at cultivation, however, due to being a monster, it took them a lot of time to cultivate. Still, they were faster than most creatures. They also grew in size as they got stronger. As for their venom, it depended on their age. A young Yin demon serpent, which was tiny compared to its adult form, did not produce enough venom to secrete through its glands. Which meant, the only reason the serpent in front of Ning wasn't using its fangs was. It's still a child. It's a newborn snake in comparison. Ning was shocked beyond belief. The snake that terrorized the villagers, cut off their route out of the island and stole their food by taking over their area of sea was just a very young snake. If this is a young snake, then how big are the adult ones? The world of cultivation started to terrify him more than he would care to admit. Suddenly, the snake changed its attack pattern. It was getting too bloody and beat at this point, so in desperation, it wrapped its long tails around the group of villagers trying to crush them. The villagers stabbed, clawed, scratched, hit, pushed, and did whatever else they could stop the snake from crushing them with its body, but nothing happened. At the last moment, just before they were crushed, however, all of the villagers suddenly vanished from the spot. They reappeared over 100 meters away, at the beach. Was it enaka? They wondered. They were scared to go after the snake once more, but this time, the snake started crawling up to them. Oh no you don't, Ning said as he asked the system to teleport the snake as far away as possible from the island. Both he and the snake disappeared from the beach, appearing somewhere deep underwater. Unfortunately, due to the massive size and weight of the snake, the system couldn't teleport it very far away. The snake wasted no time getting confused and immediately started swimming away. Before Ning could even realize it, he was back on the beach. What? He was shocked. He quickly checked his status, only to realize he had no energy now. He had assumed 500 million energy at the start of the fight would have been enough. Now he saw how stupid he was. And now I have no energy, he thought. With his mind in pain and now out of energy, he started to get annoyed. So what? He thought to himself. If I don't have energy, I will use something else. The snake was once again already near the people who were terrified seeing it come onto them once again. You are not going to attack them, Ning shouted, but no one could hear him since he had no energy. Suddenly, the snake's skin started glowing slightly red. The glow, however, had nothing to do with the snake itself. Ning was now fully employing the yin to heat conversion to the best of his ability, thoroughly searing the snake's skin. The snake made a hurtful shout and immediately turned around to go back into the water. The villager sighed in relief when they saw that. Enaka is helping us, Haisi said as he was the one most in the know about Ning's abilities. The snake went deep into the ocean to find the coldness of water to overcome the heat it was facing. In doing so, it sealed its fate, for the depth of the ocean was one of the places with the most amount of yin energy in it. Suddenly, a violent amount of yin energy gathered around the snake and immediately turned into intense heat that started burning the snake even more. Ning shouted internally, using as much mental energy as he could to burn the snake alive. Host has used a lot of mental strength and is now at a critical mental state. Any more loss in mental strength will make the system resort to a forced comatose state to preserve the host's mind. He shouted in pain, but he did not stop. If he stopped now, the snake would surely return back to the surface and harm all of the people he had come to love dearly. He was immortal, they were not. So, he decided to take all the pain onto himself so that the others could survive. Finally, he stopped being a coward. His bravery showed as the snake's body glowed to a brighter shade of red at the depth of the ocean. Every fish that came close to the snake immediately ran away, terrified at the unknown enemy. The snake ran as far as it could to get away from this pain, but it couldn't. It would twist and turn from pain, but the heat never stopped. Ning also did not stop, even though he felt like someone was physically ripping his brain out of his head. By this point, he didn't even know how much yin he had converted or how much heat had accumulated on the snake's body, but he kept going and going until the snake stopped moving. Confirming that the snake was in fact dead, he stopped accumulating yin, and all the heat turned back to yin once more. Host has overextended his mental capacity and crossed the critical state, putting Host on coma to preserve his mental state. System is going dormant suddenly. Everything around Ning grew dark as he lost his consciousness, without knowledge of when he would be conscious again. Where is he? Where is the demon? The chief asked, even though he knew no one here would know the answer to his questions. They waited for a while, but neither the snake nor their enaka returned at all. After a few minutes, the chief started sending the injured people back to the village. Due to being both body and chi cultivators, these people would need at most a month of rest to be fully back to their regular self. An hour after that, the chief sent the elderly back. An hour after that, the chief sent anyone willing back. At the end of the day, there were only 4 people that remained on the beach, with High C being one of them. Even then, Ning never returned. Reluctantly, the group went back to the village. Over the next couple of days, they lived in fear of the demon returning. However, no such thing happened. By the end of the week, they were almost certain the demon was gone. By the end of the month, they were absolutely certain the demon was gone. "I will see you guys after victory," was what he had said last, but he never saw them again. In the absence of their enaka, they kept doing what he had taught them to do. Their body cultivation technique was perfected, so they practiced that every morning. Their chi cultivation was well enough too, and they practiced that most of the night. Their enaka had taught them to read and write, so they continued doing that. The whole village was now proficient in reading and writing their own language. They started creating stories of what their enaka did, carving the words into giant rocks for future generations to read. Drinking water was no longer a problem now. Thanks to their enaka, they could turn seawater into drinking water anytime they want. High C had passed along the technique to all of them. Thanks to that, they didn't have to rely on coconut water anymore, and the villagers got to taste a ripe coconut for the first time in forever. As for food, the villagers expanded the farm on the other island, growing multiple crops thanks to the different types of grains and seeds their enaka had left behind. They now had rice, wheat, barley, and several vegetables and fruit to grow on their own. He had also left behind multitudes of knowledge about different ways to cook food, all translated in their language. He had also left behind a lot of metal pots and pans as well as other tools, all of which the villagers found important. However, perhaps the most important thing he had left behind was a single piece of paper. The paper had rough lines drawn onto it using coals. Ning had drawn it himself one day and casually handed it to High C to use one day or keep for future generations. It was a map of the nearby vicinity of the island. There were over 20 islands north of their island that were larger than theirs. Ning never mentioned whether they were inhabited or not, but just the fact that the islands were there grew their world by a lot. Years went by and the village prospered. The population grew a lot by now as the threat of monsters no longer kept them in check. Also, the fact that they were chi cultivators now, the elderly had a lot more lifespan than the ancestors before them. Some of the villagers transferred to the other islands up north and settled there, growing the population once more. High C grew up and married a girl from the village who was a few years younger than him. Thanks to his cultivation speed, He had come to be the de facto leader of the village, and soon inherited the position of the chief. He also had kids, a son, and a daughter. He let his wife name their daughter but insisted that his son be named Ning. He would let them later know about this enaka of theirs that helped them so much. And it would all start from the story of when he cowardly went out to fight the demon Fufuliki with the previous chief and a fish appeared on the beach. He would never forget the words he heard that day, and even more so just how much he had underestimated them when he had heard them. The words that he agreed to without thinking much. The words that he still heard in his dreams from time to time. The words. "Hey boy, do you want me to help you become stronger?" Nothing. That was what was on Ning's mind when he got up from his long sleep. No pain, no thoughts, nothing. He was a little disoriented and took some time to remember what had happened. Information flooded into his mind as he remembered the fight with the snake. It died, right? Yeah, it did, he said as he remembered more. Where am I? He thought as he looked around. It was dark and he could see nothing right now. What happened to my night vision? He wondered. He then realized, he felt cold. Really cold. Almost as if he was back on the glacier where he started his new life at. However, he could feel the intense pressure on his skin, so he guessed that he was somewhere deep in the ocean. System. Where am I? He asked. The ocean, I know. Whatever, can I teleport to some land? What is the closest distance? He asked. 96 kilometers, oh, that's quite close. All right, teleport, he said. However, nothing happened. Ning waited for a few seconds but did not feel anything change. What's wrong, system? He asked. You do not have enough energy. I don't. Status, he said. Status name. Ning Ruigong. Energy. 4,257 separated energy, heat energy. 12 sound energy. 4,245. Chi energy. 0 skills. Simultaneous thinking. Intermediate map. Omniscient clavis language. Candlefire. Yin to heat conversion technique. Night vision eye. Interdimensional storage. Stop time. 112 kg. Air cutter. Telekinesis. Yin to sound conversion technique. Water filtration. Earthly jade cultivation method. Sun god's morning cleansing technique. Chi cultivation analysis. Body cultivation analysis. Oh, I guess I should start with gathering energy then. Ning tried to use the yin to heat conversion technique but quickly realized that it wasn't working as well as he had hoped. He stopped after gaining a bit over 1,000,000 energy, while at the same time losing nearly all of it. I'm not in a solid object, am I? He thought. The darkness gave him no clue through a visual medium, but the fact that it was dark and he could feel himself floating a little started hint him that he might have been in the water. Since he was in the water, energy was extremely detrimental to him since most water molecules left the bottom of the ocean once it got sufficiently hot. So, he had to first look for a proper body to inhabit. He had enough energy to switch bodies, the only thing remaining was to actually find a body. System, can you help me locate a body? He asked. Everything around you is just water, so, no target for me, huh, he said. He decided to think of other methods. Of the various methods he could think of, all required either teleporting or finding a body before teleporting. God, I am bad at this stuff, he thought. Where am I supposed to find a bod? Wait a second, my body. I have my body. I can use that, right? He thought, but then he thought against it. He currently had around 20,000 energy, which was nowhere enough to teleport, and if he couldn't teleport the moment he got into his body, the sheer pressure at the bottom of the ocean would wreck his body. That would just be a waste of energy and time he spent to get that body. What else do I have? He decided to check. He looked through the interdimensional storage and found something quite useful in the first 2 seconds of looking. That should work. System, get ready to transfer me to it. Okay. No questions asked, he ordered. Confirmed, all right, come out. He thought about pulling the object from inside of him and suddenly, he felt the water undulate in front of him. As soon as that happened, his consciousness shifted. Finally, I got a body, he thought. Only then, he started using the yin to heat conversion technique. The dense yin energy at the bottom of the ocean immediately stuck to Ning as it filled his energy up to cap at once. The remaining yin simply gathered there and started giving off a red glow. Deep in the darkness, Ning could see color giving off of his body. The body he inhabited, which was the blood-red spear. All right, teleport me to this place 90 kilometers away, he ordered. Confirmed without a single question, the system immediately teleported him to the land that it had mentioned before. It was nighttime, But Ning could see with his night vision eye. He started looking around and saw that he was inside a jungle, not dissimilar to the island that was next to the island where High Sea lived. I should go back there once I gather more energy, he thought. Although, this looks like that same island, is it? He asked the system. No, are you sure? 'Cause I think I remember this exact vegetation on that island. It must be the same one, Ning said. The vegetation would have changed by now. Change? Why would it have changed? Did I sleep for more than just a few days? He asked. Host had overused his mental strength and went over critical point. System put the host in a comatose state to save his mind. I was in a coma. I do remember you telling me that. However, he trailed off. Suddenly, remembering the system's words once again, he asked, how long was I in a coma for? The people at the village must have been waiting for me to return for weeks if not months, he said. You have been in a coma for over 164 years. Shock. That was the only emotion Ning felt when he heard the words, 164 years. That was not a period of time a normal human could fathom. Ning was speechless for a long while. He wasn't speechless because he had tons of many thoughts running across his head and he could not choose what to say. He was speechless because he didn't really comprehend what the system had just said. 164 years. That was nearly twice if not thrice the lifetime of a normal human back on Earth. And he had just spent the same amount in a comatose state. That's not true, right? He asked, but got no response back. But why? How? He started to ask angrily. So, is there no one waiting for me back at the island? Everyone I knew, Haisi, Bellini, Hesini, the chief, and the others, are they all dead? He couldn't help but ask. From Ning's perspective, he had just decided to save the villagers by burning the snake alive. He had then found himself in the dark and decided to come here using his spear. And yet, to suddenly learn that it had been 164 years since then, he couldn't understand his own emotions. Was this shock? Surprise? Despair? Sadness? Grief? Anxiety? Sympathy? Amazement? Melancholy? Fear? Anger? Depression? It felt like it was all, and yet at the same time, it was none. However, whatever it was, thanks to the system, either for a good or bad reason, was amplified. He could feel every single emotion clearly, but when he tried to see the overall emotion, it was just a gray mixture of all. Whatever he did feel, made him feel horrible. I didn't even get to say my farewells, he thought. He thought he knew how much he cared for them, but he was only now realizing the extent of his care. Understanding that he would never again see the people he cared out, a massive wave of sadness struck him and the only thing he could do was wail out and cry. Ning cried, and he cried for a long time. The system did nothing whatsoever to stop him, giving him ample time to show his sadness, for that was the only way to move forward after a loss. After an inordinate amount of time had passed, Ning finally stopped crying and calmed himself to say a single word, goodbye. Ning was feeling much better right now after grieving for the last couple of days. He still wasn't over the loss but didn't get held back by it. Once he was done collecting the energy in the night, he spent the rest of the day dealing with the sense of loss. So, he was mostly fine now. He had also spent the next month or so just staying there looking at the multitudes of animals that would walk by there, some with cultivation, some not. The strongest one with cultivation he had seen so far was at Chi Condensation Third Realm. However, most of the time was just spent sleeping. During the time he also went over the different things he had and could improve upon. After acquiring 880 million energy, he bought a basic all-language knowledge type skill. With that, he wouldn't need to worry about talking to anyone anymore. Once he was absolutely sure that he would not be in danger, he brought out his human body and got into it. Ning drooped down to grab the spear and walked in a random direction. The forest was the same everywhere, so he wasn't sure if he was even walking in a proper straight line. He met a few animals along the way, but they would either run away with him immediately or butt heads with him and then run away. Ning didn't try to follow them to kill them, so they got away safely. I'm starting to get hungry now, he thought. He looked around the forest, and although it looked similar to the one from the other island, there were no fruits here. Not even berries. Am I going deeper? He wondered. He decided to climb up a tall tree and see what was going on. From the top of the tree he looked all around, but it seemed like he was in a valley of some sort, so the most he could see was green tree-filled mountains. I can't see anything from here. At least, going opposite the beach should be a proper idea, right? Hopefully, going along the beach wasn't the right call and I totally FCKED up, he thought. He kept on walking for a few more days and finally saw some fruit up ahead. Ah, finally. I was going to die of hunger soon, he exaggerated. He would have been perfectly fine for another 2 weeks without food, thanks to his body cultivation and chi cultivation. As he walked forward to grab the fruit, he saw something move behind him. He immediately ducked, as the attacking monster barely grazed the hair on his head. That was a close call, he said in relief. What is that? He thought as he looked at the assailant in front of him. It was a large green monster with crooked arms that looked like scythes. A praying mantis? He thought. He decided to check its cultivation. He focused his attention on the mantis and felt close to no pain as he effortlessly got the information. Chi condensation 3rd realm. It's a realm higher than me, but with my body cultivation, it should be a fair battle. The only problem is, his thoughts trailed off as he looked at the 2 sharp scythe-like hands. If that catches me, I'm done, he thought. The monster once again jumped straight at him, slicing at him with its 2 scythes. Ning took the opportunity to block the scythes with his spear. Ting-ting, 2 metallic sounds rang out from the clashes of the scythe-like arms and the spear. Ning was surprised to see absolutely no scratches on the spear. System did say it was a really good spear, he thought. It was time for him to go on the offensive. He immediately used his twin-step movement technique to get a massive boost to his speed and used a normal thrust technique at the mantis monster in front of him. The mantis saw him coming but barely managed to dodge him. While its speed was very fast, it was bad at reacting fast. Ning could use that to his advantage. He started skipping around the mantis with his movement technique, always trying to stay out of its sight. "Yah!" he shouted as he attacked mantis. The mantis heard him shout and moved back, but Ning still managed to cut its back a little. *T. I shouldn't have shouted. I could have killed it there, he thought. Once again, he started moving around. But the monster wasn't going to stand around again either. The mantis understood what he was doing, so it too ran around the vicinity of the fight, following Ning's footsteps. Both man and monster were now going around in circles. This is pointless, he thought. Then, he immediately turned around and charged at the mantis that was following him. The mantis was caught off guard. It didn't expect the human to turn around and attack it. Still, it once more twisted its body fast enough to survive with just a graze. Goddammit. How is it so good? He wondered. He would have to bring out the big guns now. He once again used his movement technique to run around, and the mantis followed him too, except it was extra cautious. Once more, Ning immediately turned around, but the mantis had expected this. It tried to move out of the way once again. Only this time, it was stuck. It tried to move, but it couldn't move its legs at all. It then looked back at Ning, only to see a small sharp point right in front of its head. One true strike technique at the last moment, Ning had employed his strongest technique and managed to blow off the mantis's head. Huff huff, finally, he thought. I need to learn more on how to mix and match my different abilities, he thought. He looked at the corpse of the mantis and wondered whether he should take it or not. Might as well take the arms at least. Those look awesome, he thought. Just then, 2 mantis arrived at the scene, both of which looked a lot larger than the dead mantis. He quickly checked their cultivation and was both shocked and surprised. *T. The mantises were both chi condensation 4th realm. How'd I survive this? Ning wondered as he looked at the 2 stronger mantises. They were both at chi condensation 4th realm, a realm higher than the last mantis. While his new telekinesis plus attack combo might work on one, he wasn't stupid enough to believe it would work on both. This is going to be a problem, isn't it? He thought. The mantises dashed forward to cut him up, which he barely dodged by ducking once more. He immediately employed the twin-step movement technique to run away. He ran far into the forest, forgetting about the fruits he wanted to get there. He looked back hoping he had lost the 2 mantises, but when he saw that both of them were hot on his tail and catching up, he got scared. There is only one thing I can do now, he thought, and that was to teleport somewhere else. He needed to pick a place and distance fast. The mantises were just near him and pulled their sides back to attack him, when suddenly, swish swish, 2 swish sounds came from far to his and he heard 2 thuds to his behind. Through his energy vision, he saw that both the mantises were dead. What? He was shocked. He looked carefully and saw that the mantises had 2 gaping holes in their head. Ning followed the direction of the hole and saw 2 arrows embedded deep into a thick tree. Who? Ning couldn't understand. He immediately turned around to look at his right side but saw nobody. Who could have attacked them? Ning is starting to get more confused. Only then did two people come out from deep in the forest, about 200 meters ahead of him. One of the people was a bald old man with a kind face. He wasn't very tall, but he wasn't very short either. He wore an entirely white robe. It matched the flowing white facial hair of the old man. He was holding a normal-looking bow. Is he who shot the arrow? Ning wondered. Next to the old man was a young lady that looked around the age of Ning himself. She was wearing a pink robe with a black sash and had a sword tied to her waist. Young man, are you all right? The old man asked in a raspy voice. Yes, yes. I am all right. Was it you who shot those monsters, mister? He asked. Ning was still in disbelief as to how this man could possibly shoot from so far away. Yes, it was this old man, the old man said. Thank you, mister. You saved my life, Ning said with a little bow. He had learned that from the basic cultivation knowledge. Hey, mister, what are you doing so deep in the jungle? You don't seem very strong, the young lady next to the old man spoke. I got stranded near this island and came out on that beach over there, he said as he pointed in the direction of the beach. I have been trying to get out of the forest, so I was walking in this direction. The young lady squinted her eyes, trying to scrutinize his answer, but the old man simply just showed a kind smile. Is that so, young man? Why don't you come with us then? We can show you the way out of this place, the old man said. Ning got a little apprehensive at the offer. Do I take the offer? He looks genuine. However, whatever. I can just teleport away if I feel something is wrong, he thought. If you will allow me to, it would be my pleasure, mister, Ning said. As such, the group of three started walking in the same direction Ning was in the first place. So I was right in walking towards this direction, huh? He thought. Ning looked at the old man again and looked at his hands. His bow was no longer there. Ning didn't understand where he kept it, but he assumed that it might have been in a storage bag or storage rings, something that was similar to his interdimensional storage. What is your name, young man? The old man asked after a while. My name, it's Ning Ruigong, he said. What about you guys? He asked. This old man's name is Kazer Brouch, and this is my granddaughter, Michaela Brouch, the old man said. Where are you from, young man? The old man asked. Ning didn't know where he was from. He had been to multiple places, but the only places he would consider himself to be from were. I'm from Clavis, he said. Oh, Clavis, huh? I heard it's a nice place, the old man said. The young lady also nodded her head. Did Clavis get popular or something? Ning thought. Along the way, more monsters came by, but the old man effortlessly killed them all. The old man showed so much ability that Ning even started to fear the thought of checking his info just on the off chance that he might go back into a coma and miss 164 years again. The young lady next to him did nothing but just look around the forest. Ning didn't realize what she was doing and assumed she was here just to sightsee. Must be because she wanted to roam the forest with her grandfather, he thought. There, the girl suddenly screamed, pointing to a tree not far away from them. Ning looked at the tree and struggled to find anything noteworthy about the tree. Is there an animal up there? He wondered. Yes, it is the tree. Good work, Michaela. The old man, Kazer said as he walked towards the tree. Once he reached it, he took two things out of nowhere. One was a small knife and a small bottle. He pried open the bark of the tree with his small knife and saw the sap of the tree flow. He then carefully collected the sap and stored it inside the bottle. Our job is done here. Let's return home, the old man said. In less than a day, Ning was out of the forest. Following the old man named Kazer Brouch and the young lady named Michaela Brouch was not a mistake at all for Ning. Aside from his name and place of origin, the old man asked him nothing. So, Ning decided to not ask anything in return either. As such, the rest of the journey had been a silent, awkward one. From time to time, he would see men and women, both single and in the group, walking around the forest. However, no one seemed to want to talk with anyone. Finally, only after leaving the forest did he see a city in front of him. Welcome to Starside City, my young friend, the old man said. Whoa, Ning said looking at the massive walls. That reminds me of the walls back in the southern continent, he thought. Do you guys get a lot of monster invasions in this town? Ning asked directly. We used to, but not anymore. Initially, this place was not populated at all, so the monsters ran rampant here. To counter that, the people living at the time built these massive walls here. However, over the course of time, the city got more and more populated, some of which were strong cultivators, and they cleared the forest of any strong monster. Now, the most they can go without being noticed is fifth realm of chi condensation, which most of the disciples in the sect of this city are, the old man said. I see, Ning said. The old man suddenly took out 2 pieces of circular metal and handed them to Ning. Ning looked at it and was surprised. Coins? He asked. Yes, they're silver coins. You will need 5 bronze coins to enter. You can keep the rest of it for yourself and sell wherever you can in this city. Now, I have some important tasks to complete, so I must bid you adieu, my young friend, the old man said. Ah, okay. Thank you for saving my life and bringing me all the way to the city, Ning said. Take care, young man. Amitabha. With that, both the old man and the young lady left the newbie Ning and entered the city in a hurry. He saw the old man not even being blocked by the guard while entering. In fact, he was bowed to by the other people around him. Was that man some sort of big figure in this city? Ning wondered. Quickly, he ignored the thought and started focusing on what he had to do next. He was absolutely unsure of what to do in this Starside city. Well, first of all, I should get in. I can think of other stuff later. Ning walked up to the long queue of people waiting to enter and waited for his turn to come. As said by the old man, the guard only took 5 bronze coins before letting Ning enter. He needed to go through no other checkups. They let just about anyone walk in here. What if a terrorist were to come in like that? Ning wondered. Although, there might not be such a thing as a terrorist in this world. I should not forget that I'm not on Earth anymore. He wanted to forget that, but then the houses in front of him would remind him of the period pieces he watched in the orphanage. Now that I'm in, what do I do now? He wondered. Grr. Well, at least you know what to do, Ning said as he giggled. He asked around and quickly found himself a tavern where he could get some food. The food here costs about 2 bronze coins per meal, so Ning ate it without worry. I can create money for myself whenever I want, Ning thought and giggled himself. Although, it might be better to learn about this town, Ning thought. System, give me knowledge on this town, he said. All knowledge about town basic Starside city information, 8,800,000 energy. Beginner Starside city information, 88 million energy. Intermediate Starside city information, 880 million energy. Advanced Starside city information, 8,800,000,000 energy. Omniscient Starside city information, 88 billion energy. That is more expensive than I was expecting it to be, Ning said. He contemplated for a while and finally came up with a decision. I will have to stay in this city for the foreseeable future, so it might be a good idea to buy the beginner version. Alright, system, buy the beginner information, he said. Confirmed suddenly, the entire beginner's knowledge of the city appeared in his mind. It gave more information than he was expecting it to, so he went over the new information. City Lord, huh? That's something like a mayor or a president, I assume. The number of people is also quite surprising. Seeing how small it looked, I assumed the numbers wouldn't be that high. Not to mention, over 64% of them are cultivators. Oh, there are 3 sects around here, and multiple guilds, huh? I will have to check them out when I have the time. The last piece of information was something that really helped and depressed Ning at the same time. It was the geographical information about the city, and the land it was on. That, mixed with the intermediate map he had, he was able to make enough correlation with the two and easily figured out where he was. Turns out, he was still on the northern continent. It hadn't taken him more than a few minutes to put those two together. Only thing was, he was on the other side of the planet as well. During the 164 years he had been in a coma, he had somehow managed to cross the entire globe. While Clavis was on the side with no central continent, Starside was on the side with the central continent. Finally, he finished his food and walked out of the tavern. The city was huge, but it was nothing to a cultivator. He walked around the city doing nothing but buying a few small snacks here and there. In the end, after seeing all the different houses and decorations of the city, he got bored. Guess I should go see what these sects are like, he said. There were 3 sects in the Starside city. They were Eagle Sect, Pure Cleansing Sect, and Mist Origin Sect. Eagle Sect was a run-of-the-mill sect where budding cultivators went to learn and grow as cultivators. The sect would provide them a competitive atmosphere along with different cultivation methods and techniques that helped them grow as a cultivator. Ning was currently in front of this particular sect. The Eagle Sect lied on the other side of the city, opposite to where the forest was. However, it was not out of the city, so Ning didn't need to leave the city to see the sect. He wasn't allowed entry, so he just looked at the surrounding, chewing on some snacks he bought a few minutes prior. This doesn't look as good as I was expecting it to be, he thought as he looked at the sect. The sect looked run down from the outside and even the gate looked like it would fall down at any minute now. Are they not making much money? He wondered. He didn't want to look at the sect any further, so he went back the way he came from and arrived at the center of the city. This was where the Pure Cleansing Sect lied. The Pure Cleansing Sect was a sect run by what the system called Buddhist cultivators. From what he could remember with the basic cultivation knowledge, Buddhist cultivators seek to do no harm, unless it is for protecting others. The Pure Cleansing Sect was focused on healing and cleansing the wounds of others. Everyone in the Pure Cleansing Sect, however, was bald. Ning didn't like that. He liked his hair very much. Still, the idea of a group of people all learning to heal and protect others made him feel like it was a good sect. Lastly, there was the Mist Origin Sect. It was located outside the city, so Ning didn't bother going to look at it for now. But, according to the system, the Mist Origin Sect was a beast-taming sect, where the main focus of the sect was in taming monsters found in the wild and taming to work with them. He liked that idea very much. Imagine, I could tame that yin demon serpent, he wondered. He looked at the sky and realized it was getting dark. He needed to find a place to stay fast. He quickly went to a tavern marked on the information about the city that also doubled as a lodge for cultivators. How much is it for a night of stay here? He asked. 2 silver coins for a 1-bedroom, 3 for a 2-bedroom, the tavern manager said. Ning nodded and acted like he was taking stuff out from his storage bag, but instead asked the system. Hey, system. Make me 2 gold coins, he said. It will cost you 10 million energy. That's cheap for 10 days of stay. Do it, he said. Confirmed suddenly, 2 gold coins appeared on his arm that he was keeping inside his sleeves. He took out the 2 gold coins and gave them to the tavern manager and said, show me the best one with a single bed. I will stay here for 10 days. The tavern manager hurriedly treated him like a VIP guest and personally took him to a clean, open room. He tried to sell his food and bathing services to Ning, but Ning simply told him no and closed the door. He then sat down and started to cultivate. While his body was cultivating, his mind was thinking of other things. Thanks to simultaneous thinking, he didn't have to worry about going into chi deviation. Alright system, over 160 years have passed me now. My initial idea of waiting for my body to adapt to the chi, has it progressed? He asked. No, your body was in frozen time, so everything is the same as it was. Sai thought so. Alright, I need to speed it up. Do you have any idea how I can make it acclimated to the chi? He asked. There are a few ways you can pay 266 million energy to speed up the process by 2 times. You can pay 1,064 million energy to speed up the process by 4 times. You can pay 40,640 million energy to speed up the process by 8 times. You can pay 216 billion energy to fully acclimate right now. *T. He cursed. He needed to cultivate for a while if he wanted to collect so much energy. I should look to doubling my cap for now. The first thing I need to do is find how this kinetic energy can be unlocked. Damn system is useless in these regards, he thought. He proceeded to cultivate for 5 days straight and collected 200 million energy in the time. He spent that with what was remaining on doubling the process for now. Suddenly, he could feel his body cultivating much faster than it used to. He was about 20% faster now. He didn't know how much the system had improved his body, but clearly doubling the acclimation rate had shown some progress at the speed of cultivation as well. He cultivated for the next 5 days as well, not leaving the room at all, and collected another 200 million energy. Finally, on the 10th day, he stopped cultivating. He could feel that a breakthrough was just around the corner, but he had to go through the bottleneck first. Soon, he left the room and told the tavern manager he was leaving the tavern. He paid a little to eat some delicious meal for the day and left. It was early in the morning, and the mist had barely left the city. Ning walked toward the southern gate of the city and walked out. He was now in front of the big forest. However, his plan for coming here had nothing to do with the forest. It had to do with what lied on the right side of the city. Mist Origin Sect was way too intriguing of a sect for Ning to not visit at all. In fact, he wanted to do more than just visit it. He wanted to join it. So, this early morning he had left the city for exactly this reason. He wanted to join the sect. He had been wondering what joining a sect would feel like ever since learning about the 3 sects 10 days ago, and now he was going to join one. Except, He needed to pass their test exam before being allowed to enter the sect. When he reached the Mist Origin Sect's sect land, he nodded to himself. Just as the city knowledge had told him, the sect was in fact on top of an elevated piece of land. Ning was, however, surprised to see so many people in front of the sect, ready to take the test. System did say the exam took every month. But I didn't expect so many to join at once, he thought. Although, most will probably fail. It would have been great if the system could see the future too. It could have told me what the tests were. I would never fail that way, he thought. Soon a person came out wearing a red robe and started speaking. Everyone, welcome to the monthly test of Mist Origin Sect. We have only 2 requirements for you to join the tests, the man said. First, you cannot be over 25 years of age, or you will be disqualified. Second, you must be at least a chi condensation second realm cultivator, the man said. After finishing that, the gate opened and everyone was allowed in. Ning got into a queue that led inside the gate and was tested by someone. Once the person made sure that his age and cultivation requirement were okay, he let Ning go inside. He was sent to a hall where he stood still waiting for something to happen. Sometime later, a man walked in and started speaking. Everyone, welcome to the actual entrance examination. Soon, you will be handed a set of books that will list the species and rank of the beasts. All you have to do is read and remember it, the man said. A group of people entered and handed out the different books. Each person got handed 2 sets of books. Ning started flipping the book and soon realized that it was a list of monsters with names and a ranking next to it. We are supposed to memorize this, he thought in shock. What do they think I have, photographic memory? Ning then thought for a second. I should have that though. It will be useful. System, how much does photographic memory costs? He asked. Eidetic memory costs 2 billion energy, that's, he counted in his mind and said, 50 days worth of energy gathering. *T, it's either get eidetic memory in 50 days or gather energy for 500 days and double the gap. Oh God, why does it all cost so much? He hated it all. Whatever, I should start reading the books, he thought and started studying it. The monster names were convoluted and hard to remember for someone that had never learned much about monsters. Not only that, there were multiple monsters of the same type, only a little different and thus of different species that one had to remember the name and rank of. Very soon Ning realized that that was not happening. Alright system, I need your help here. Transfer whatever knowledges are in these books straight into my HEA. No, better yet, what are the costs for similar information in the system? He asked. All knowledge on monster beasts. Basic knowledge on monster beasts. 242 million energy. Beginner knowledge on monster beasts. 2,420,000,000 energy. Intermediate knowledge on monster beasts. 24,200,000,000 energy. Advanced knowledge on monster beasts. 242 billion energy. Omniscient knowledge on monster beasts. 2,420,000,000,000 energy. *T. Why is everything so expensive? I don't even have enough for the basic one. Ugh, Ning cursed. What about turning these books into information? Does that cost a lot? He asked. Turning the 2 books to information costs 298 million energy. Wait, are you telling me this book has more information than basic knowledge on monster beasts? He was surprised. He quickly opened the book once more and realized that the book went in depth with the explanation more than a few times of the confusing beasts. Oh, I just need to recognize it, right? Then maybe I don't need to remember the name at all, he thought. Alright system, just dump the rankings and pictures and leave out the words and information, he said. It will cost you 122 million energy, are you sure? Damn, that's expensive as hell as well. At least it's affordable though. Alright, buy it, he said. Confirmed information poured into his brain as he now knew the images of different monsters and swiftly say what rank it was. However, he couldn't know what the name of the monster beast was, or what made it different from a similar monster beast. He decided to use the remaining time to read the rest of the book and try to remember just as much as he could. While he didn't have an eidetic memory, he still had a far more formidable mental strength when compared to someone with a normal chi condensation second realm cultivation base. His superior energy mind combined with his human mind gave him a lead against a normal cultivator. Soon he was done reading the book. It felt like he could remember every single page of the book. However, he knew that it was just a feeling and in reality, he didn't really remember much. Only someone who was taught this stuff from very early on could remember the name and ranking of so many beasts that were listed in the book. Soon, the 1 hour time given to them was over, and the man from the start entered the hall once more. "Alright everybody, please return back your books," he said and gestured to the sect people to take back both of the books. Everyone swiftly handed back the book while some grunted that the given time wasn't enough. "Now that you are done, we will let you enter this room one by one. You, stand up," the man pointed to a lady that was about as young as Ning and said, "You will be first. Go in and name the examiner all the monsters you remember. If you can successfully rank them in order of highest to lowest too, you will get additional points. Every single point matter here," he said and sent the girl forward. He then spoke, "Also, I forgot to mention. Only 100 of you here will move on to the next test, and of that only 20 will join the sect. Good luck," he said with a smile. Different murmurs started all over the place as everyone was anxious for their turn to come. One by one, the people started leaving the hall and going into the other room. None of them returned. Nobody was passed or failed until the end result since only 100 could pass, and they needed to test everyone. Finally, it was Ning's turn to take the test. He was called forward and told to walk into the room like everyone else. Once he was inside, he was shocked to see the sight in front of him. There were 10 cages with different types of animals, all laying there in the palm of these cultivators' hands. Ning felt a little bad but didn't let that emotion deter him. "What's your name?" the female examiner inside the room asked him. "Ning Ruigong," he said. He didn't get a lot of opportunities to use his full name nowadays. "Alright, Ning. Can you name these monster beasts?" she asked. Ning looked at the 10 monster beasts kept in the cages. There were wolves, hyenas, snake, large hornets, crows and etc. there. Ning only knew the name of 4 of them. Singer ox, beryl hare, autumn wolf, scarlet hornet. He swiftly answered the 4 he knew and stopped. Now, he had to use the chi analysis technique to know the name of everything else. It took a lot out of him mentally to use the second layer, but he hoped that the monsters weren't that strong. He used his analysis to look through the different monster beasts and swiftly named them as well. Only the snake and the crow were too high level for him to struggle it, but even then he managed to reach layer 2 of each of them while keeping his wits. Damn, that was a 6th realm tearing viper and a 5th realm blazing crow. They must be quite strong, he thought. "Oh wow, good job on the perfect 10. Can you rank them, thought?" the lady asked. "Sure," Ning said as he proceeded to tell the rankings of all the beasts here. The woman was left dumbfounded at just how much the young man in front of him knew about the different beasts. "Phew, full marks," the woman said in shock. "You pass this test and are guaranteed to move forth," she said as he sent him to the next room. The next room was also a big hall where all the participants from before were standing around, loitering. They were waiting for the results to be announced. Soon, all the participants were done with their first test and the results came back. As expected, Ning passed without trouble. The examiners didn't reveal the points each of the participants earned, and only told them who had passed. Soon, most of the participants left the hall in sorrow and sighs. Only 100 participants were now left in the giant hall. With such a little amount compared to before, it looked like there were barely any people here. The man from before came back once more and started talking. "Congratulations on passing the first test. I saw that a number of you got very good scores. I am truly happy to see such great seeds in this batch of examinees. For your next test, will be something similar. You will once more be given these books to read. However, this time it's not based on who can remember the most, but rather who can understand the most." The man gestured and a group of people once again walked out from the door and handed each of them a copy of a small book. If the previous 2 books were a decent-sized meal, then this book was just a little dessert that came afterward. However, in terms of meals, desserts were always the ones that everyone looked for. Ning read the title of the book, Ascending Mist Brand. It was a technique that allowed one to create a brand using their chi and put it on a willing monster beats to tame them. "You have 1 hour to read the book and comprehend the technique," the man said and left. Not once again. Ning didn't want to read another book again. "System, do the same thing and turn it into a technique for me. Put it directly in my head," he said. Not enough energy. What? Again. He quickly checked the status and realized that he had about 37 million energy right now. Not enough to do anything, unfortunately. So, he was forced to read the entire book by himself. He only had an hour to read and comprehend a book he had just got. That should be impossible, right? He wondered. Even eidetic memory wouldn't help at this moment. Remembering what was said in a book and understanding what was said were 2 very different things. In the end, he couldn't do anything to get away from reading the book and taking the easy way out. So, he turned the book to the first page and started reading it.